My name is Michael. I'm on the advisory board of this great nonprofit, as well as part of the supply chain responsibility department at Intel here locally in Chandler. Here with me is Marc Campbell. He is the sustainability manager at SRP, a utility provider in which I personally rely on here in Chandler for electricity and water. So Marc, how are you doing this morning?
I'm doing great, Michael. Thank you. I've got my cup of coffee, so I'm getting ready to roll. I hope everybody else is as well. So welcome.
Cool, awesome. So tell me a little bit about yourself, actually. I'm not sure if we met before, maybe at a Green Biz conference or whatnot, but I know you have some background with landscape research as well as with some expertise in water within SRP. Can you describe more into that?
Well, I've been at SRP for about almost 22, 23 years now, on really both sides of the company. So I started on the water side of SRP, and I spent about 15, 16 years there working on water conservation, water planning, and water strategy topics. So taking a look at water rights, trying to plan for new water supply opportunities in the state of Arizona as we continue to grow. And as I mentioned, kind of a really big focus on making sure that we're using our water supplies in an efficient manner. So worked on a number of water conservation projects over the years, helped develop SRP's Water Expo, where we distribute smart irrigation controllers to our residential customers every spring. That's now in its 10th or 11th year, so it's become a pretty successful program. And then for about the past 6.5 years, I've managed our sustainability policy and programs group, which really focuses on three fundamental areas. The first is the high level sustainability strategy at SRP. So really we're responsible for developing and really managing SRP's broad array of sustainability goals out to 2035. So there are a number of different components under that, some water topics, also some forestry topics as well, what we're trying to do up on the watershed to help manage the landscape up there and provide for additional runoff, additional carbon sequestration, et cetera. The second area is really our employee engagement programs. And then the third area that I manage is our electric vehicle initiative. So the things that we are doing, the programs and the initiatives that we're developing to support the advancement of transportation electrification here in the Valley.
Awesome. Sounds great. You have quite a challenge ahead of you, especially with a lot of the announcements that Intel just had recently in the city of Chandler. Quite a big manufacturing operation coming, as well as a lot of water. So looking forward to see what SRP has strategically to provide also, as well as what the future holds for semiconductor manufacturing in Arizona. Water also has a lot of intricacy links to landscape. I know I'll admit myself that I have been in the environmental protection world for quite some time, about over a decade now, and only heard about urban forestry recently through AZSA. So what role does a utility play in urban forestry in your mind?
Well, I mean, I'll start with maybe some big connections at the watershed level and bring those on down. So I mentioned a minute ago our 2035 sustainability goals. As a water provider or water rights manager, SRP manages a 13,000 square mile watershed in the north and east part of Arizona. So pretty significant land base. And as we're all aware, each year we see these major conflagrations throughout the West, these massive forest fires that are destroying landscapes, denuding the environment, disrupting people's lives, destroying homes, etc. And they are having quite a detrimental effect on our water quality as well. And so what's been happening up over the years is those forests have become pretty thick with undergrowth and small trees that compete for the water supplies. And unfortunately, those smaller trees are not always healthy, but what they do create is a lot of fuel for these major ladder fires. And so it becomes an opportunity for what would be otherwise containable fires to move up into the canopies of the trees and then spread across the tops. And that's what we're seeing is these fires that just can't be controlled, and they effectively need to burn themselves out over time, but they burn so hot that what ends up happening is oftentimes those landscapes aren't returning as forested lands, they're returning as grasslands. And so that from a carbon sequestration capture perspective, that has quite a detrimental effect on the ability to kind of help pull that carbon out of the atmosphere and mitigate some effects of global climate change. And then as that starts to run downhill, when we do get storms up there in the summer, maybe the monsoon storms, or certainly during the winter, a lot of that runoff contains a lot of ash and turbidity. And so that causes problems as it comes down for delivery into the valley. So that's one really high level way that we look at it. And we have a pretty aggressive goal of trying to restore or treat 500,000 acres up on our watershed by 2035. And that's going to take a pretty broad partnership to get us there. That's not something that SRP can do alone. We need to work with the Forest Service and private industry to see a lot of the industry actually return so that we can do something with the trees that we're removing. So we've got to get in, we've got to mechanically thin those forests, get rid of that undergrowth, and then find ways to creatively use those trimmings. So then as we come down into the watershed, we kind of I'll kick over to more of the power side and maintaining power reliability. And as you talked about with Intel, power reliability is a big deal for Intel. I mean, you need good quality power to produce chips, and you need it constantly. What we end up having to do, unfortunately, is because of federal regulations, we are required to prune or remove trees that grow underneath our power lines. And unfortunately, over time, what happens is we have seen some of the wrong trees planted in the wrong place. So trees that maybe are growing too tall to be located underneath a power line. They can cause hazards, it can cause fires, public safety issues, and it can certainly bring down those lines, cause reliability issues. So annually, we have a huge tree inventory that we go out and we prune, trim, or in some cases have to remove those trees. And when we do trim or prune them, sometimes we have to perform those deep V crown cuts. And I think we've all kind of seen those around the valleys in rights of way and others. These trees that are just, frankly, just look a little butchered. They're still alive, but they aren't left in probably the healthiest of conditions. And so what we've wanted to do, because we do realize that trees are a really great community benefit. They help mitigate the urban heat island effect. They provide much needed shade. If they're planted near homes on the east or south or west sides of homes, they can actually reduce buildings by up to 20 degrees in the summertime. So they provide such a broad array of benefits that we wanted to find a solution. And so about 5 years ago, we initiated what we call the Right Tree, Right Place program. And that is working with our municipalities to identify locations where we have a substantial number of those trees. We are going in now, rather than simply pruning them, we are removing those trees. But what we're doing is we are replacing them in multiples with the right tree. So for every tree that is pulled, we replace them in multiples between 3 and 6 trees, depending on the size of the tree that the community chooses. So they can choose the larger 24-inch box trees, or they can get some of the smaller 5-gallon. Those can either be trees that are replanted in place if they are the correct species for underneath the power line, or they can be relocated to other areas in the community. So public areas such as parks and rights of way. So what we're trying to do as well is identify good locations in the community that can benefit from enhanced shade. So for instance, if there are areas of the community where people walk a lot to use public transportation, we want to make sure that we are shading those corridors over sidewalks, et cetera, to provide a little bit more cooling effect. And as we know that, there are those additional benefits that also come from the urban canopy in terms of carbon sequestration. I think we've all felt kind of that evaporative cooling effect from being in shaded areas, or frankly, even where you feel grass. If you drive through some of the agricultural areas here in the valley during the summertime, right after they've been irrigated, you can feel that noticeable decline in temperatures. And so we want to see that same sort of effect occur as a result of what we're doing with the tree program. And then the final one is we also offer a residential shade tree program. This is part of our energy efficiency offerings. So we typically conduct workshops every spring, and perhaps, I believe, also in the fall. Those spring workshops are now completed, but residents, SRP customers, can register for those workshops. They can take them, and then they will get a couple of shade trees that they can plant near their home. And so really what we're trying to do, Michael, is take a kind of a multifaceted approach to making sure that we've got good, healthy forests, whether it's on the watershed or in our urban setting.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'll admit that I started looking at redoing my backyard, and learning about this program of SRP providing trees certainly sparked my interest. So it's good to know about programs like that, especially since it can reduce cooling costs in the summertime. And I'm from Arizona, actually, and people ask me from out of state if you ever get used to the heat. I will say that it's a dry heat, yes, as everyone says, but you don't get used to it, because even in July and August time, it is scorching heat. So having shade and other things like that to help out with it certainly helps too. Are you from Arizona?
Not originally. So I'm originally from Seattle. So I grew up where there are a lot of trees. Quite a bit of a temperature difference here for me. And unfortunately, we already started to feel it this past weekend. 99 on Sunday, and I think we've all probably heard this last summer, where we had about 55 days of 110 degrees, which smashed the previous record of 33. So I think that sort of temperature increases really speaks to the need to do what we can to cool the environment as much as possible.
Yeah, for sure. Great program on that. So you mentioned about partnership, working with others in private industry also. So why has SRP chosen to be engaged in this particular conversation, being a member of the Urban Forestry Roundtable?
Well, because the challenge is bigger than us, and I think we all need to really work on a common cause and toward a common goal. And trees are a really easy one, I think, for a lot of people to get behind. We know that when you make an investment in trees, in terms of a residential property, it's one of the greatest long-term benefits that you can make in your property. I mean, you're putting a significant amount of time into the maturity of that tree. Working as a kind of a broad-based coalition gives us an opportunity to really leverage the effects, because we're going to need to see the urban forest canopy expand beyond just discrete areas. I mean, this is an issue that affects all of us, and yet it's one of the easiest things, frankly, Michael, I think that we can do to start to mitigate the urban heat island effect. We know that there are a lot of segments of the community that are more prone to the really significant effects of heat. But I think sometimes we tend to get caught up with kind of the big picture imagery of climate change. We hear a lot about what's happening globally, the 2 degrees Celsius threshold, all of these different kind of components that go into it. I think it's hard to make a connection for a lot of us. And so what we need to do is kind of bring that down to the community level, kind of downscale that. And I think that's what we can accomplish working together collectively across the landscape. But we need all of our partners and all the municipalities to work toward the same initiative, because if we can expand the shade tree canopy across the entire area, doing it in 1 or 2 places isn't really going to have much of an effect.
Yeah, very cool. Awesome. I know one phrase I picked up in high school was think global, but act local. And it seems like that's really being distilled here in a global challenge that everyone faces and has to contribute to combat, but also act at a local level, where using things like trees or other type of strategies is useful for combating kind of the local heat. Because I know, in my professional experience, the LEED certification taught me about the heating island effect, and just reading the content about that, living in Arizona, growing up here too, it just resonates, because when I'm out on a run in my local neighborhood, just the pavement, you can just feel the heat come off of it too. So quite an extreme heat there, especially as we approach the summer times. So thinking within the global standpoint, as well as acting locally, what would you like to see optimal outcome in the Valley for Urban Forestry? What are the big goals and big dreams?
But I think we need to rethink how we grow, and how we develop the area. And of course, you've mentioned it, right? We've put concrete and asphalt over everything, and now we're realizing the consequences of doing that. From our work with the Urban Forestry Roundtable, we've heard a lot about different community goals. And I think, many of the communities have 25% urban shade tree canopy goals or greater. And I think that's a great place to start from a sustainability perspective. Let's get more trees and let's focus on that. And let's make sure that we're making good investments in water use for those trees. And you touched upon some of the landscape uses, and here in the Phoenix metropolitan area, about 70% of residential water is used for outdoor irrigation purposes. And I know some people, might have some concerns about that, but it is, in terms of an investment, is one of the best places that we can actually make an investment. Because if we can keep, I talked about kind of the temperature swings on buildings, if we can minimize those, we'll actually use less electricity. And so there is, of course, embedded water in generating electricity. So it's also a way that we can start to focus on bringing down water use in other areas. So it's, if you have to look at the entire equation and where you're using some of those supplies. But so I think that's the first area. But I think, we need to start to take a look at some of our urban centers. And so what are we going to do in terms of, maybe installing green roofs or white roofs? How are we going to open areas of the community maybe to more community gardens? So bring some of that back into the center of our cities. And so the big component here of global climate change is obviously CO2 and what we're doing there. And so power generation is a big one, but so is transportation. And so if we continue to have to see a lot of our food crops imported, we're going to have embedded carbon and all of that as well. So I think there's some good opportunities to look for ways to rethink urban redevelopment, right? And there are a lot of older areas in Phoenix that are starting to do that. And so how can we do that a little bit more creatively? And that's another big area of focus that I would like to see occur.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think one thing we haven't talked a whole lot about also throughout this whole strategic elements of sustainability is trees just look nicer sometimes in environments in the city, right? I remember driving to my friend's house I haven't been to, and just driving through the neighborhood with the tree, shade over the entryway, it just makes it have a different feel to it overall. So rather than just going to a city where it's full of concrete and asphalt and buildings, the built environment, in that case, I think trees do provide that element of community associated with things also. So I think that provides quite a bit of good sentiment for neighborhoods and communities. Well, Marc, thank you for joining us today. It's always good to hear from a local leader in sustainability as well. We appreciate your comments. We are excited for Arizona Gives Day. And Kenda, back to you.
Thanks a lot, everyone, for waking up this morning and watching us. My name is Bill Donato, and I'm the Environmental Education Lead for Arizona Sustainability Alliance. I've been an educator for 37 years and 33 years in the public school teaching AP Biology, AP Environmental, and Forensics. And I was also the Green Club and student council advisor in those. And then 4 years after that, I was the environmental director for McHenry County in Illinois. But the most important person here is Dr. Rachel Saunders, and she's the principal from Thompson Ranch Elementary School in El Mirage. She's been a teacher, an assistant principal, a principal. She's an innovator her entire 22-year career. Rachel, do you want to say a little bit more about yourself?
Definitely. Dr. Rachel Saunders. I've been here at Thompson Ranch for 6 years. We are in El Mirage, but we are part of the Dysart Unified School District, a very progressive and innovative school district. It's an amazing place to be. not only have I been principal here for 6 years, I've also been a middle school principal for 2 years and also a fine arts elementary principal for 5 years prior to that. So Thompson Ranch is a STEM integrated school. So we integrate the arts as well as have a real focus on STEM and the engineering process. We started this journey 5 years ago with a grant from APS to get training and to really integrate the engineering process into our curriculum. So very passionate about this, about STEM education and really providing students with authentic learning experiences because it does make a difference in their lives.
That's so great to hear. Being a teacher myself, it's just wonderful when you have a principal that shows confidence in their teachers and allows them to branch out. And speaking of branching out, how did AZSA come to partner with your school?
It was an amazing story. It was during October break. So October break, there's no students, but we work as administrators. I received an email from the Arizona Sustainability Alliance saying that, did you know that your school, based on our geographic area with Vulcan Materials and mine behind us, Grand Avenue Railroad, and then also we've got a large automotive distribution center. So we're very urban location and not a lot of trees. So when you Google map us, you're like, wow, what's that? Why is it in the middle of a desert and there's no trees? That's because we're in a very urbanized area. So Arizona Sustainability Alliance reached out through email saying, hey, do you want to revitalize your school and have trees on your campus? And the answer is yes, yes, and yes. We know all of the positive impacts of trees. Not only are they beautiful, but they're extremely important for the environment. So it's been a true blessing from Arizona Sustainability Alliance to provide over 50 trees to Thompson Ranch. They are currently turning green and filling out, and it's amazing because the kids are so excited to see them. They're very appreciative, and it's about that putting a positive impact during really a year of COVID, a year of restrictions, a year of, there's a lot of this is very difficult times. I think we're getting out of the difficult times, but it's been a difficult year where we've been basically initially locked down after spring break for COVID restrictions, restarted school with all students mid-September. And then the impacts of COVID in our community is really significant. So having that positive with the trees and that positive, it produced a really positive experience for kids. And it really changed the mindset of our students about, wow, they're giving us these trees, and really looking around and how we start beautifying our campus, because these trees are so beautiful. Not only are they important for the environment and for all that, but how do we continue to give back to our school and give back to our community? So we really initiated an amazing program for Adopt a Zone, keeping our campus clean, really sprucing up the front. Student Council found a real STEM experience on solving a real world problem is the drainage area in front of our parking lot, front parking lot. They saw that our sidewalk from the city of El Mar sidewalk is currently starting to cave in. They researched at Student Council as a leadership group and a student voice to say, hey, how do we fix this problem? They determined that large riprap rocks, putting it in that location will at least stop the erosion from continuing and giving back to it'll make our campus look nice, but more important, it solves a real world STEM problem of consistent erosion, which is decaying our sidewalk, which will cave in the sidewalk, cave in the parking lot. And then they're going to rip all that out, put it in a landfill, never to be recycled again, and put new concrete. And guess what? The problem is going to continue. So it really ignited a passion for how do we give back, how do we solve real world problems. And it's amazing. It was really a fire that set a positive fire on our campus of how do we continue to give back to our school, to our community, and really solve real world problems. Because the trees really did solve a real world problem. We had no shade in the back of our school. It was desert-like. Not only was it desert-like, but our field was also, because of irrigation, we had no grass out there. So really working with Dysart Unified School District, which is absolutely an amazing school district, How do we get water out there? How do we change out all the valves? How do we get everything reorganized in order to have shade out there, grass out there for kids to play? Because I'm going to be honest, it's not good to play in just dust and dirt. It's not good for, even if you don't have allergies, you're going to start getting allergies with all that dust and ickiness in the air from running. So really that focus on beautification of our campus and really sustainability was really important for us.
Can you elaborate a little bit more on the 12 zones on campus?
For sure. So we have 12 different zones of keeping our campus clean. Each zone has a large, like a garbage container, and then it's adopt a zone. So it's volunteer, a classroom volunteers to adopt a zone or adopt an area on campus, and it's their responsibility to keep that part of that campus clean. That's their zone. And we really, and there's a little sticker on the little trash bin where it says this zone has been adopted, really setting a sense of pride. We do shout outs on announcements of congratulations, Miss Benavidez's classroom. Your zone area was the cleanest this week. So really continue to promote keeping our campus clean, recycling when needed, and just, you know, taking a sense of pride and ownership on our school. And it's really been really positive. And that came out of student council as well. Student voice was really strong on how do we continue this positive momentum of beautifying our campus, giving back to our campus, and making a positive impact on the environment.
Man, that's great. We talked a little bit on Friday about student council's role and this story about the rocks. Can you explain that?
Oh, for sure. So the trees started blooming and beautiful green leaves started branching out. We do deep watering once a week. We have irrigation to those trees, but it still needs a deep watering once a week for sustainability. And I'll go out with our maintenance guy on our little golf cart and fill buckets of water during lunchtime, so the students see not only that the principal, also our head custodian, has vested interest in these trees, because it's important that they see us, they become more actively engaged and involved. So student council thought, you know what, it would be really nice is to create these small little, go out to the field, pick up some pebbles and write positive messages and then hide them by the tree. It was really kind of cool on that. And it was a huge thing because I knew that they were going to do it, but I didn't realize that it would ignite such a passion for students of like, oh my gosh, look, these trees. Wow, there's these little rocks. Can we keep these rocks? They really wanted these rocks with these positive messages of do your best. You are amazing. Have a fantastic day. Just really little positive notes on these little rocks that we were able to recycle from our field. And it was really amazing how student council has really stepped it up this year in a really positive way of how to, during this time of COVID, during this time of a worldwide pandemic, how do we continue that positive vibe? How do we continue the positivity? Because there's a lot of positives in this world, even though there's a lot of stressors with COVID, but really igniting that passion. And like I said, they went out to recess, morning recess, lunch recess, afternoon recess, and they were able to locate these rocks. And it started, no one knew about it until one of them like, hey, look, wait, I found this rock by the tree. And then all of a sudden, like wildfire, they were like, oh my gosh. So they went all to the different trees and they picked up those rocks and they kept those rocks. And it was super cool. They were like, can we keep these rocks? And of course they can. So it was really amazing. It was kind of like an early Easter egg hunt, but without the eggs.
So it sounds like the tree planting spurred the kids' interest in the environment. How do you encourage teachers to use the outdoors as part of their curriculum?
For sure. So even though we do have COVID restrictions outside, we are able to continue to mask up as long as we're not running or exerting a lot of energy. So the outside is a great place to engage in scientific study and in the sciences. So Christmas, we pretty much had until winter break, we had to kind of almost limit the interactions outside. But after Christmas break for about a month, there was a real high peak. So we just had to continue to take those safety precautions. Even during that time of COVID restrictions, we were still able to go outside. So we went outside, we were masked up, we kind of maintained our distance. and we were able to engage in STEM-based learning activities as well as science learning activities. Because really, without going outside and doing experiments, science in the classroom isn't really real world, doesn't connect with authentic learning experiences. So even though there are restrictions, we did follow our restrictions for CDC guidelines and distance ourselves, really focusing on, each person had their own little Ziploc bag of material so they can go out and engage in those science STEM-based activities, really focusing on making sure everyone felt safe. We were following CDC guidelines, but realizing that outdoors poses a really positive experience for us to engage in scientific inquiry. So we were able to do it. We were able to think outside the box. And this is what this year has really been about. It really forced us and stretched us in ways that I honestly, even though I've been an administrator for a long time, for 17 years, I've been stretched so much and grew so much like the beautiful trees outside. I didn't even think I could stretch that far. So really a major shout out to our amazing staff and amazing administrators, really to continue to provide high quality education for all students, but provide them with the opportunity to choose to be in person. And we have about 70% of our students in person, 30% of our students online learning through that model. We are getting more kids coming back now, which is fantastic, which is amazing. Super excited that our kids coming back because we know that learning at school, it makes a huge positive impact versus, and we have significant data to show that how did our iSchool students do versus our in-person students do on district benchmark assessments. Significant, huge increases on our students that were on campus learning, engaging, and working on those authentic learning experiences, having that teacher in front of them. But I also understand the other side of the coin. If you're a family member that's concerned about COVID, so we offered both options. Now that the vaccines are out, numbers have been significantly decreasing. We're seeing a lot of our families coming back to campus, which I think is important. So it's super exciting for that opportunity for kids to continue to learn through STEM education, through science inquiry, and not be limited because of COVID restrictions. We were able to, again, think outside the box, come up with positive solutions, realizing what our limitations are, but not using the limitations as a crux not to provide quality education for kids. Just because we have CDC guidelines doesn't mean that we can't provide authentic learning experiences, does not mean that we don't go outside, doesn't mean that we can't do amazing things here and provide educational opportunities for every child here on campus in a meaningful way with those CDC guideline restrictions.
That sounds great. How to increase trees and shade improve the quality of life of your students and staff?
For sure. The trees, once they bloom out, which is in a couple of years, they're showing green now. So it's really exciting just to see green out there instead of sand, dirt, is just huge. Because not only is it aesthetically pleasing and pleasing to the eye and like, wow, there's these beautiful trees, it's also great for the environment, cleans our air, and excellent for the environment. Eventually, they're going to grow into these beautiful shady trees, and students will be able to, instead of clustering around one or two trees that we have on the playground, which isn't always the best, they're able to branch out, spread out, find a shady tree, engage in really great time socially, engage with students, with each other, and talk and just really enjoy the time that we're out there in a shady location because it's hot in Phoenix. It's in the 90s this week. Soon enough, it'll be in the hundreds, 110, really, really warm. So those trees will really provide significant shade for students. So that way, when we're out on the playground, which I think is a good place to be because they need fresh air, they need to be outside, they need to be active, but it provides them with an opportunity for like a safe haven for them to go to, wow, I'm overheating. I need to go find the shade of a tree to cool down. So that's really, it's going to have huge positive impacts as soon as the trees start growing. It's created a really positive culture for our staff and for our students because they see that someone cared enough to invest at Thompson Ranch. They saw a need and they invested in Thompson Ranch in our school. And that's huge because it set a positive momentum of really positive change on our campus during a time of unknown, during a time of crises, during a time of worldwide pandemic. It really changed the mindset of students and really getting ownership and positivity through this experience. And it was amazing. We were unable to have students plant the trees, which is because of COVID restrictions, but we were able to post those images, post videos on Facebook, which is a very engaging platform for us. We sent those videos to classrooms so they can see the videos of the tree planting and see the pictures of the tree planting, get them excited. Even though they were unable to participate in digging the holes and planting the trees, they were still engaged in a different way by seeing those pictures and being a part of it. And then you're always a part of it because you go out on the playground and you get to see it. So you see it, you live it, and you feel it. So we did have quite a bit of staff participate in the tree planting, which was important. We got the city of Mirage. We got our superintendent, which Dr. Kellis, he is an amazing, giving individual, really making sure that he was here on site to be part of this extraordinary experience and really highlighting the amazing work from Arizona Sustainability Alliance, their generosity, their blessing to Thompson Ranch.
Yeah, talking about your staff, I was there for both of the planning days, and I worked with one of the music teachers there, or the music teacher, and he was like so excited. And how do you encourage that within your staff? I mean, that was amazing. They gave up their Saturday morning to go out there. He says he always takes kids outside, and uses that and stuff. So how do you encourage that, or is your staff that amazing?
Well, it's about really focusing on giving back to the community and having a heart for our community. I can tell you that the Thompson Ranch staff, we choose to be at Thompson Ranch because we choose to give of ourselves for our students. And we do have an amazing staff, and they're very positive, very wanting to help and support and do whatever we need to do. I'm going to tell you, we were limited by the staff that were able to come, because I had a wait list of almost the entire staff wanted to come and plant the trees, so we couldn't have that many, which is kind of amazing and fantastic. I think the thing is with positivity during this, and again, this is a weird year, I'm going to be honest. It's been a weird year because of COVID restrictions and just like the news, and it's just between everything, it's been a really stressful year. And then we're not able to connect with staff meetings. And we usually have once a month, we would have like a potluck, and we would just build community with our school and keep that positivity and keep that. And it's about connectiveness. This year we felt disconnected, not because of anything that was in our control, because we couldn't have more than like 10 people in a room that's 1,000 square feet because of COVID restrictions. We had to have a lot of meetings through Zoom, or through Google Meets. So we were unable to connect. And that was really hard because you feel alone when you can't connect, and you feel isolated when you can't connect. So we really encourage a lot of different things. So I put it out there as a survey of how can we really come together as a staff, realizing these are our COVID restrictions, and really making sure that we feel connected, that we feel supported, that this is a positive environment for everyone, not only students, but also teachers, because honestly, it does. If a teacher feels positive and happy to be here, that positivity and that positive energy really feeds our children and feeds our students. So I think it's super positive. So they thought about different things like, hey, sweet treats on Friday in our staff lounge, leaving our staff lounge, or really actually our school library was our little bit of a staff lounge because it was much larger. Having coffee, hot drinks. Every team was able to provide little sweet treats. And because it was like a little mingle area, because we can't be too close for too long. But it opened up the opportunity of us being able to reconnect with each other, being able to, hey, I haven't seen this teacher like basically all year, except for a Zoom little photo that's 2 inches by 3 inches, their little pretty face. So really being able to connect with our staff and with each other is super important. So really, and then we do positive shout outs for every day. It's Share the Love, where teachers and staff can nominate an amazing staff member here at Thompson Ranch I go on announcements at 3:30. I do an announcement on, we like to share the love and celebrate each other. Reading the little positive remarks from the staff member, and then really going to their room and be like, they get a little sweet little treat, a little peppermint patty, and then their little note, really trying to set that positivity of let's share the love. Let's really focus on those positive experiences. Let's focus on, really bringing people up that are during this time where it's difficult to connect. We connect in ways that I would never tell you last year that we were able to connect this way. And then we have our Jaguar Possum staff member. We shout those out on our Facebook. We shout it out through email. We really are trying very hard to keep that positivity during a time of crises, realizing that socially and emotionally, people are experiencing a real wide range of emotions, from fear to, hey, I'm all good, I'm happy, I'm here at school, I'm educating kids, I'm doing what my passion is. But there's a wide range of emotions during this time. It's gotten better with the vaccine. It's gotten better with one school opened at first. It was new. I mean, we didn't open, we didn't know what to expect. But really, students stepping up, following safety procedures and protocols, wearing a mask all day, which is, it's a lot to expect a student to wear a mask all day, realizing we do give mask breaks through recess and through lunch. They eat breakfast in the classroom each and every day. They start their day with a positive affirmation. Thankful Thursday. What are you thankful for? Marvelous Monday. What's marvelous about you? Because I think it's important to not only build self-esteem inside, but also Terrific Tuesday. Tell me about something that's terrific in your life, or someone who is terrific. Why are they terrific? Really positive affirmations as we start our day for social and emotional learning, which I think is really important. And it was really magnified this year as we move toward this year of uncertainty, this year of extraordinary and exceptional times. Really staying positive, staying focused on really the good things that are happening. And there's a lot of good things that are happening. And like I said, one huge good thing that was happening is the blessings from Arizona Sustainability Alliance in order to provide us with beautiful, not only are they beautiful trees, but they provide a purpose. And the purpose is to provide shade for our students, which is amazing. So again, huge blessings, a lot of huge positives. And we continue that positivity through shouting out for staff members, shouting out to students. We do our Student of the Month, which is our Jaguar Pride, exhibiting pride behaviors, which is positivity, responsibility, integrity, determination, and being extraordinary, because they are extraordinary students. So really focusing on not only really pushing up positives for students, positivities for our staff and students as well. So it's been huge. It's been good. The only restrictions that we have is no field trips this year, which is difficult. Really limiting our opportunities to showcase our STEAM, which is really important. But we were unable to do that for that first semester, and then still now. But in May, we're going to have CS de Mayo, which is going to be huge. And we're going to open our entire campus. That way, the COVID restrictions are limited because I have lots of space to space students, families, community out. So we've got volunteers through the VFW and through other organizations that will come out and support our school. We're going to have Arizona Science Center in our gymnasium, as well as our back breezeway. We're going to have our ballet folkloreo dancers, which is a sense of huge pride on our campus. Our ballet folkloreo dancers, they're absolutely amazing. We're going to have them in the cafe. We're going to have in our quad area, in our amphitheater, we're going to have the band playing. We're opening every classroom, preschool through 8th grade, for families to go in. And it's a STEAM open house. Go into your child's classroom, see what they're working on their STEAM projects. Let them talk about what they're learning in STEM education. So it's super exciting. We're expecting 600. I know my maximum capacity is 1,000. So we're going to probably have about 600. We'll have those safety procedures and protocol, having one way in. They'll have to line up. We'll have to temperature check them. We'll temperature check them. They'll have hand sanitizing stations across campus. They'll have to wear a mask the whole time. If they don't wear a mask, obviously, we're going to have to remind them of CDC guidelines and expectations, and they will not be able to enter without a mask or one of those gator guards or different things to cover for face. coverings. So yeah, so we're super excited to be able to offer that STEAM event. Usually we offer 3 STEAM events per year. We had to cancel the first 2, but this one's gonna be huge. If you're gonna have a STEAM event, it's gotta be big. So this one's gonna be really huge and amazing, and showcasing all of the students' hard work, determination, and their engineering process through STEM education. So we're super excited about that.
That sounds great. And, one thing I didn't hear a lot was we're working hard for standardized tests, because as a teacher, I know that if you work on real world problems such as climate disruption, the higher level thinking will take care of itself as far as when the test scores come back. So I applaud you on that. I guess we're kind of go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so you brought up an excellent point of, well, some schools are like, we don't have time for STEM. If you do STEM right, and they're not just miscellaneous, unlinked, unconnected project of the day, and you really connect it with your core curriculum and fuse STEM into that core curriculum, it beefs up the curriculum to a DOK level, depth of knowledge level of 3 and 4. And I'm going to tell you, it's going to make a positive impact on student achievement, because they're thinking critically, analytically, and a higher level when they're engaging in meaningful, authentic learning experiences through STEM, but it has to connect to the curriculum. It can't be, this is my STEM project of the day, or this is something I found on the internet. If you do that, you're right. You're not going to, there's no purpose for it, and it's not meaningful for them, and it's not really going to make positive impacts on student achievement.
So everyone that's out there, I don't know if you heard this wonderful story about this, jewel in the desert, urbanized, which brings up unique challenges in itself. But you probably would partner with Arizona Sustainability Alliance on future projects. And of course, we're having this Gives Day because we would like to have more funding so we could do additional projects. Would you be open for additional trees or tree curriculum?
For sure. I think it's Arizona Sustainability Alliance is really honestly an amazing organization that gives back 10 times fold to the community. So when you think about donating to Arizona Sustainability Alliance makes a huge positive impact in our community and in our school, in our community. And definitely looking at future projects with Arizona Sustainability Alliance is huge and really will enhance our STEAM education program here at Thompson Ranch. So I'm looking forward to this amazing partnership. And I'm also huge shout out to Arizona Sustainability Alliance. Without their sponsors, without those people that are generous enough to donate, this could never have happened. So thank you for those sponsors, to those who are generous enough to donate, because it's making a huge positive impact in the lives of children, in the lives of our students, in the lives of our staff, in our community. So huge shout out to Arizona Sustainability Alliance, because it is making a huge impact.
Good morning, everybody. If you're in Arizona time, my name is Camhi. I am the founder and executive director of the Arizona Sustainability Alliance. We are celebrating Arizona Gives Day today, which is one of the largest days of giving for individual donors in Arizona, hosted by the Alliance of Arizona Nonprofits, where we are a member. They're a wonderful nonprofit. And I'm excited to have you guys with us today. So we decided, in addition to running a fundraiser, which we're really excited about and have been doing great so far, we're a quarter of the way to our goal, and it's just about 9 o'clock, that we would have an entire day devoted to talking about urban forestry and heat and the impact of extreme heat on the community. And so we've had some amazing speakers this morning already. And I'm really happy to be here with Eric Candela from American Forest, a partner that we've worked closely with for the past few years. And so we're going to spend the next 20 to 30 minutes or so just talking a bit about Eric's work the work that we've been doing together, looking at the community and thinking about the future. So Eric, do you want to do an introduction for yourself and maybe just talk a little bit about American forests?
Sure. And thank you for inviting me to join you today, Ashley. I'm happy to be here and to both support and applaud all the great work that AZSA has done in its short history as an organization. American Forest's history is just a tad bit longer than yours. We've been around for 175 years, 174. And we're the oldest nonprofit conservation organization in the United States. You know, our mission is to try and create and support healthy and resilient forests from cities to the wilderness. And, you know, the forests, we do it in a way that, you know, keeps the focus on the climate benefits that trees and forests provide, as well as the benefits to people, water, and wildlife. Those are kind of the four primary beneficiaries, if you will, of healthy and resilient forests. And that's where we orient our work. And we conduct it in kind of three different ways. We try and innovate new relevant practices and approaches to forestry, and we'll talk a little bit more about that as we go along. And then we develop place-based partnerships so that we're actually on the ground in cities and on landscapes throughout the country. You might think of it as, you know, really putting our money where our mouth is, and helping local partners to develop and implement best practices. And finally, we try and roll those two things up into movement building. So if we have good ideas and we can demonstrate how they work on the ground and their efficacy, then we hope that others throughout the country will replicate our work and help it grow.
I realized that after the last few years of working with you, I never asked you how you came to work in American Forests. Like, how long have you been there and why did you decide to work there?
You know, that's a question I could answer on several levels. The fact of the matter is that just through sheer serendipity, I had the good fortune to be hired by the Greening of Detroit, which is a local nonprofit organization that engages in urban forestry work. And at the time that Detroit was emerging from bankruptcy, there were a number of partners who came forward and said, we are willing to help support the city, but we don't quite know how to plug in. And at the time, the Greening was working with American Forests, and American Forests has this model of developing place-based partnerships. And so when I spoke to them about developing a partnership in the city, they agreed without reservation, and we were able to attract the United States Forest Service and the Michigan DNR to the partnership, a number of community nonprofits that have an interest in healthy canopy and a healthy environment in Detroit. The city, several departments from the city government participate, as do the three largest research universities in Michigan. And so it's, as well as a couple representatives of industry. So it's a very robust partnership, and in the almost 5 years that we've been in existence, we've been able to help support and expand Detroit's capacity around urban forestry in ways that the city would, you know, have not otherwise been able to do for itself.
That makes a lot of sense. And so you talked about, you know, working with local partners, and I know you work in a lot of other cities as well. And so maybe you want to discuss a little bit, you know, how it came to be that you ended up working with me and with the Arizona Sustainability Alliance here in the Phoenix metro area.
Yeah, I can probably claim just a a little bit of credit for, you know, the work that we're doing with the Arizona Sustainability Alliance and our partners from the Phoenix Metro Urban Forestry Roundtable, in that you had reached out to our president, Jad Daly, as had the city of Phoenix at about the same time. That's the two essential components of a healthy partnership, that there's a local jurisdiction on the ground that is willing to commit to a partnership, as well as a nonprofit organization that can do some of the work that a government agency is unable to do, or that it would take longer for a government to do. My role was just in simply, you know, pointing out within American forests that if we could succeed with urban forestry in an area like the Central Valley in Arizona, desert environment, then, you know, we could, in theory, you know, succeed with urban forestry in every other city throughout the country. Because candidly, there are all kinds of different challenges that cities face with urban forestry and tree canopy, but you know, a desert climate at a time when the climate itself is changing is you know, is about as difficult circumstances as you can confront. So that's why we're there, and you know, frankly, I hope we can spend a few minutes talking about the work of the Forestry Roundtable, because it's been very successful, in my opinion.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I was just reading an article the other day that they're predicting in the next 20 to 30 years, there could be up to 6 months of the year that is, you know, essentially summer here in the Phoenix metro area. And, you know, we find ourselves at this really interesting intersection where you have a lot of economic development. I read the Phoenix Business Journal every morning. You have major companies shifting their headquarters here. You have a lot of people from different parts of the country that are moving here for work. The cost of living is still very reasonable, but then you abut these issues like extreme heat, and a lot of people don't realize that, you know, heat deaths and heat illness as a result of extreme heat is one of the largest natural disasters that we face in the United States. But because it's not as visible as, you know, a hurricane or a tornado, it doesn't really get as much attention. And that's one of the things we've been really thinking a lot about is, again, like, how do you raise that visibility? And urban forestry is one of the many tools that we can use to address that. And that's one of the reasons that we really started scaling up our work, and we're so excited to work with you, is because we know that, you know, it's like you said, it's extremely challenging. You know, we're in a desert climate, we're addressing, you know, changing climate. You know, we saw this this past summer with having basically no monsoons and a pretty long summer, which is, you know, what you may foresee happening in the future. And then how do you then integrate urban forestry into this mosaic of development and changing social and economic factors? And so it is really important, and it's been great to work with you guys, and also to learn from you, and to learn from the work that you've been doing in other cities, and also the tools that you're developing as well, and how that can help us be more thoughtful about the work that we do and where we do the work. So I would love to spend a few minutes talking about the tree equity score that you have developed, and then maybe I can talk a bit about, you know, how we're utilizing that here in the Phoenix metro area, because I do think it's a really critical tool for us to be thoughtful and mindful of the work and the impact that we're having in the local community. So do you want to give like a little 101 on what it is and why you guys developed it?
Sure. But first I want to underscore a point that you made, in that heat is the number one natural disaster, or heat results in more deaths every year than any other natural disaster. So, periodically you'll hear about a tornado in a particular part of the country that unfortunately kills several people. But, aggregated up, heat kills more people every year than any other form of natural disaster. And I can't remember who said it, but one expression that I like is that we rest in the shade of a tree today that somebody planted 20 years ago. And so, now is the time to be doing the work. And so with that in mind, one of the things about tree canopy in cities in particular is that it tends to mirror wealth, so that wealthier parts of town tend to have more and better tree canopy. There's been a few studies recently that have overlaid redlining maps from the 1930s with present day tree canopy coverage. And there's a very close parallel between the amount of canopy that communities that were redlined have versus those that were deemed to be the best or A-rated neighborhoods. The people that need trees the most, have the least number of them. And so American Forests wanted to develop a tool that would help planners visualize the problem and be able to make informed decisions that were objective in nature, that could begin to move every neighborhood up to some type of common standard or baseline threshold. And so we developed what we call the tree equity score, which is just what it sounds like. And it's predicated on 7 criteria. 5 of them are demographic in nature and derived from data that is collected in the US Census. And the other 2 are physical characteristics, a map of the actual tree canopy coverage of a particular city, and then a surface temperature map. And all of those things are rolled up in a way that a perfect score would be 100. And I want to note here that there's no city in the country that has a perfect score. And then you can compare, neighborhoods within a town or adjacent neighborhoods. And by neighborhoods here, I'm referring to census block groups, which is the smallest unit of geography for which the data is standardized, so that, we are comparing adjacent neighborhoods in Phoenix to one another and not the city of Phoenix to Chicago or San Francisco. And in this way, municipal planners, local elected officials that are making decisions about resource allocation and where trees can and should be planted, can use demographic data and tree canopy data to plant trees where they are needed most. That's the thinking and the methodology behind the tree equity score.
Yeah, and we were so fortunate that that you did that for the Phoenix metropolitan area, and we were able to pilot it. So the speakers that we had at 8 o'clock our time, we had Dr. Sunders, who's the principal of Thompson Ranch Elementary School, which is actually where we first piloted the tree equity score in January, actually. So it's been a really useful tool for us because all of the work that we do in urban forestry, again, focuses on those areas that you mentioned, you know, low tree canopy, lower income, the sort of traditionally redlined communities. A lot of the tree plantings we do while we work with schools and parks, cities, and various communities, we've been doing a lot of school plantings. And so we utilize the tree equity score for the Valley, focusing on Mirage, and Derek from the city will actually be on later today talking about that as well, to be able to look at and really see, areas that were high need. And so that's how we identified the Thompson Ranch Elementary School in El Mirage, which, as Dr. Sunders mentioned, it is highly industrialized area. It backs right up to Vulcan Materials. There's multiple other industrial complexes right there, high level of development. And then you have the school right in the middle of it that had, you know, very low, very few trees. And so that was an amazing opportunity for us to work with them and to pilot the tree equity score here. And subsequently, we actually have another tree planting coming up on Saturday. And we use the tree equity score again to identify 2 schools in Southeast Glendale that we knew, we knew that area was pretty high, but utilizing the tree equity score, we saw, like you said, it's a low, not high, that the tree equity was extremely low in those census blocks. And then we're again able to identify what are those core schools, Title I schools. In this case, the planting we're doing on Saturdays with the middle school there. But again, like those are for a nonprofit, those are very practical. It's not just a tool that's like, oh yeah, like you said, it's great to compare. We can actually use it to make decisions. And that's extremely helpful for, an organization on the ground that's trying to be very thoughtful and strategic about our impact. So I really appreciate that.
We are, everyone at American Forests and frankly, Microsoft Corporation, provided the funding that made the Thompson Ranch planting possible. Was absolutely thrilled with the work that you did on that project. And we need to point out that another reason that it was so important to plant at Thompson Ranch is that younger children in particular, are more susceptible to the impacts of heat and heat island. And so, to think of them, out on the playground or waiting for a bus or whatever that may be, in the scorching heat, without any, recourse to shade, is just astounding. And every time I think about that planting, I get kind of a little warm feeling inside because I know we did something right and well in that instance. I just want to, also point out that trees have been demonstrated to improve educational outcomes. And so, I'm not equipped to go into all of that research. I'm familiar that it's out there and that it's been peer reviewed and validated. So that's another reason to feel good about that planting and others that we do around school properties.
Absolutely. And I was listening to Dr. Sunders earlier, and she was mentioning that it actually has sparked all of these programs within the school, new teacher programs, new programs where the students are taking ownership for the trees. Like it wasn't just this sort of, oh, we did the tree planting and that's nice. It's actually become this whole movement within the school to really think about that. And that's, I think that's exactly what you would want, that really sparks all of these other opportunities as well.
And so I want to take the opportunity to point out that, that's essentially what we have just talked about is the model that American Forests tries to pursue. And AZSA was instrumental, vital to implementing it in Arizona. And, you know, if American forests were, you know, suddenly to get sucked into the earth, all of those kids at Thompson Ranch that have had the learning and the experience with trees will take that, you know, kind of ethic and value with them and perpetuate the work. So
Absolutely.
that's gratifying to know.
Yeah, it's wonderful actually. So we have about 9 minutes left. I'd love to switch over and talk about the Phoenix Metro Urban Forestry Roundtable, since we're two of the three conveners on the call today. And you know, it's something that we've been working really hard on for the past year and a half. I don't know if you want to give a little maybe intro about that, kind of how it came to be. I'm happy to kind of jump in as well and talk a bit about that, and you know, what our goal is and where we're at and where we're going. It would be wonderful. Also, I meant to point out that your background is fantastic. I love it. It's great. It's really great.
Well, thank you. You know, if not for that, you'd be looking at the back wall of my office, which is nothing special. Yeah, the urban forest, the metro, what is it? The Metro?
The Phoenix Metro Urban Forestry Roundtable. You got to say it 10 times fast. Or we just need to shorten it.
Yes, that coalition, shall I say. It's just so many good things to say about it. You know, originally, as you mentioned, it came together because of AZSA's interest in leadership, as well as that from the city of Phoenix. You know, the reason for it is that across the country, funding for urban forestry is far less than what it needs to be. And so I'm not aware of a jurisdiction that has enough capacity to properly manage its tree canopy. And it's important to understand that tree canopy is, for all practical purposes, infrastructure. When you think about the air quality improvements that trees provide and the cooling benefits, we mentioned the benefits to education. Frankly, trees help make driving safer because it causes trees provide a focal point of curiosity that invite drivers to slow down and drive more carefully than they would otherwise. And without connected infrastructure, it's not functioning at its fullest capacity. And so what we've been able to do through our partnership is bring different organizations and entities together that have varying degrees of expertise and interests in urban canopy, and aggregate that expertise and those interests in a way that we are accomplishing more collectively than any one of us would have been able to do individually. And to illustrate that point, you know, I'm going to recall something that a city of Detroit official said to me last year. He kind of interrupted his own train of thought, and he said, you know, in some ways, this problem is so enormous that it discourages people from even thinking about it. And he was absolutely correct. You know, you're thinking about an infrastructure system on a city or county-wide basis, and without sufficient resources to begin to address the problem, you're in a state of perpetual kind of crisis management. You know, you'll clean a tree up when it gets blown over or when a limb falls off or something of that nature. And that just, you know, frankly perpetuates poor management. And so, you know, you'll know better than I, but at this point, you know, we have representatives from more than three dozen different organizations and jurisdictions participating in the roundtable, and are able to talk about initiatives like creating a volunteer citizen forester program where people, similar to maybe a master gardener program, where people who have an interest in trees now have an outlet to apply that interest, and to bring information to homeowner associations where the majority of people in the Phoenix metro area live, and where decisions about trees are being made at a hyper local level. So we've been able to do that, as well as talk about mapping efforts that will connect trees in strategic ways, as Thompson Ranch might not be the best example, but connecting elementary schools to the neighborhoods that they serve, or city parks to the neighborhoods that they serve, or bus stops to the places that people are walking from. And in that way, we're moving the needle on urban forestry in the greater Phoenix area.
Yeah, I think one of the things I feel really fortunate about is when AZSA started working in urban forestry, there's already this amazing community of urban foresters, nonprofits, experts at the state level that have the knowledge. We weren't really working together. And that was one of the bigger challenges. And I had heard that there had been past attempts to bring everyone together, but it's actually a large group, as you mentioned. I mean, we have, I think, 90 people, about 40 different organizations, almost every city in the Valley, several parts of the county, the Department of Forest and Fire Management at the state, all the nonprofits that work on tree planting. So it's a big group. And so we're so fortunate because we have this depth of knowledge and we have the history of people that have been working here to understand what are the challenges, and sometimes even to know how to address them. But again, if you're working and you're running an organization, it's extremely hard to then devote additional time. So I think us working together to identify what those issues are, and then together to figure out how to address them, it makes the burden a little bit easier for not one organization to have to solve all of the problems, even if we wanted to. So I appreciate that. I appreciate the level of collaboration and engagement we have from all of the different stakeholders. I'm always impressed with how many people come. I think it's kind of twofold. It's this amazing opportunity for everyone to learn what's going on because there's so much going on here, and that's great. But also to figure out, okay, how do we really address some of the issues? And change some of those underlying things to raise education, like you mentioned, whether that's from a citizen forester program or doing things like creating cool corridors, to really actually say, okay, these are the major things that would shift the needle on urban forestry here in the Phoenix metro area. Let's figure out how to make those happen. So and we're a very action-oriented organization, so it makes me happy to see the diversity of stakeholders that are engaged in that conversation. And I think it's been about a year and a half to see that people have continued to engage, that it's really created this nice community. It makes me really happy. So
well, and not to put too fine a point on it, but it absolutely does give people a place to plug in, and the experience, this is a little insider baseball, but the experience we had recently with a federal grant opportunity whereby if there was no coalition, no one would have applied for the funding because the requirements were such that it required some coordination and a proper idea, and it was only through the resources and contributions of several members that we were able to apply for a grant. And time will tell if we get it, but that's an opportunity that frankly would not have existed without the roundtable.
Absolutely. Great. Well, we're just a little bit over 30 minutes. This has been really wonderful, and I always love talking with you, Eric. And I love working with American Forest. It's been a wonderful partnership that I'm looking forward to continuing as well. So I think, Kenda, we can pass it back over to you.
Yeah, hi everyone. Thank you for tuning in. I'm the Education Director of the Arizona Sustainability Alliance, and I have some fantastic guests from Paidea Academies here today. So I'll have Brian Winsor introduce himself first, and then Victoria Garrison, and then Alan Chambers. You can just tell us what your role is, a little bit about Paidea Academies, and then we'll go into some questions about the work that you're doing at your school.
Perfect. Well, I'm Brian Winsor. I'm the founder and the executive director of Paidea Academies, and our whole philosophy is a whole person education, a whole person empowering the community and our scholars, teachers, everyone, body, mind, heart, and spirit. And so in that philosophy, we have this real drive to take it outside in all of our curriculum and in every way to embrace the outdoors. So Victoria.
Hi, I'm Victoria, and I'm the director of instruction. I've actually been here since this school was dirt, and I started out as a teacher here, as a third grade teacher, and now serving in curriculum and instruction. And we're really excited about all of the exciting projects that are on the horizon for us, and having our kids take it outside and being right there along with them as we do it. So, thank you.
And Alan, last but not least.
All right, I'm Alan Chambers. I'm a fourth grade teacher. I've been here at Paidea for the last 4 years and have watched us grow, not only as a school, but as all of our scholars, and just adding more outside spaces and more intentional time to be outside with our Take It Outside program has been really great over the last couple of years. And I look forward to helping us in developing more ways to get kids connected with nature in the future.
Awesome. Thank you all for introducing yourselves. And so, yeah, like I said at the beginning, today we'll be hearing more about the Take It Outside project, which is what Paidea is spearheading to really engage students in outdoor spaces. And a big part of that is also finding ways to mitigate issues like extreme heat in communities. It's one thing to get kids outside and be connected to nature. It's another to make sure they're doing it in safe and healthy ways. And urban forestry and green spaces in schools are such a critical part of that. So we'll be hearing more about that from them. And then as we go through kind of some back and forth questions towards the end of our talk, I'll share a little bit about a new initiative that AZSA has launched. We're in the process of recruiting educators for the Arizona Urban Forestry Education Initiative. So I'll wrap up at the end with some info about that. So first question I have is for Victoria. Can you tell us more about the Take It Outside project? How are you incorporating outdoor education about urban forestry and green spaces into teaching and learning with students?
Sure. So this project, the Take It Outside project, really began as a collaboration with ASU with the end in mind of creating cooler outdoor spaces so that children can spend more time outdoors. We know how hot it is here in Arizona, and
yes,
you spend time outside in nature when the spaces are so hot. So our initial collaboration with ASU was around creating cooler spaces. And then we went from that to how do we get children outside? And that's how the Take It Outside project sort of began. We decided that the best way to really create something that would be not just an idea, but that would be sustainable and be part of our culture and part of what we do is to actually integrate it seamlessly into our adopted curriculum. So a team of teachers came together, and we've basically taken the outdoor spaces that are being created and the urban forestry and all of the ecosystem, the bioswale, all of the things that we're trying to create into those outdoor spaces and integrate them into our actual curriculum, so that when children go out there to be outside, it's not just to plant something, or it's not just to observe the trees are growing, but to actually do our learning out there, and for it to be part of what we do. So this team of teachers also collaborating across grade levels, collaborating across content areas. A big focus is also to create sort of a signature framework for this, and to create what we call coached projects, incorporating reading, writing, math, science, and Socratic seminar, which is very much part of what we do at Paidea, into those outdoor learning spaces. So that's our overall, model and philosophy, is to not just go out there with a book, not just say we're going outside and we're going to read outside, or we're going to go outside and we're going to play outside, although those are things we are going to do, but we're also going to do purposeful learning outside and in those outdoor learning spaces.
Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing. So I'll kind of toss it to Alan next. So how so far has the Take It Outside project impacted students? You're a fourth grade teacher, you're in the classroom and outside and outdoor classroom a lot of the times. Can you share some examples of the benefits of incorporating green spaces and urban forestry onto campuses for students and for educators, since you all are experiencing all of these things too?
Absolutely. So our Take It Outside program, we're still setting the stage and building up our urban forests, getting more natural green spaces, but already the plants that we have there are attracting some natural critters coming down from South Mountain that explore our playground and want to be there, along with the chickens. We're already cultivating there. And so beyond our purposeful education and setting the stage for getting education more outside into cooler spaces, we also have unintentional organic learning happening. We have kindergartners who've been introduced to the Lear garden and the composting, and they're like, I want to help my teacher dig up as many earthworms as possible. First thing in the morning, they want to get their hands dirty, dig up those earthworms and move them from place to place to help with our composting.
And that is rare for Arizona kids, since a lot of the times they haven't even touched an earthworm or at all until they're maybe in middle school or high school. So that's pretty unique.
Yes, it is. Just last week, we had a visitor, somebody's pet parakeet from the neighborhood, got out and found a safe place in our garden. And we just had a group of 25, 30 kids just sitting in awe, watching this parakeet and coming up with different stories on their own of where this parakeet came from and why this parakeet chose our garden instead of flying away somewhere else. So just watching the natural awe and kids slowing down, taking time away to really just enjoy, and the natural inquisition, all the questions that they generate on their own. We as teachers, we show up with a lesson plan, we've got 20 questions, but if we just take time to let the kids slow down, let ourselves slow down, then they start asking more and more questions that generates a good, healthy discussion and can lead into those coached projects in the future.
Definitely. And I have a follow-up question. So as an educator, usually whenever you're trained to be an educator, you're expecting to be in a classroom for many, many years to come. What has it been like for you as a teacher to have the opportunity to teach in outdoor spaces? Like, what is that for you as an adult teacher and an adult learner?
It's helped me a lot. The classroom feels very stiff. Sometimes it feels like it's the same routine over and over again, but having the opportunity that Paidea has provided with our outdoor spaces to encourage each other, I feel more empowered to go outside. I also feel encouraged to talk with my colleagues and share ideas of how they can go outside or break up the monotony of being in the classroom, trying to do the same routine, but change it up and inspire.
Yeah, great. Thank you so much. And then I think Alan or Victoria or Brian, any of you could answer this question. We've talked a lot about these amazing outdoor spaces. Can you describe what those look like? I know Brian has a photo behind him, but I think our audience would love to hear a little bit more about what it's like to actually have kind of green space on campus. What does it look like? What does it feel like? All of those types of things.
Well, it's not all built yet. So we do have a green space. It's our whole person sanctuary, and the others, we planted 9 trees on April 1st last week, and that was a wonderful learning experience where we had to do a Facebook Live to get it into the classrooms, but it was marvelous. I see teachers and kids coming out to sit underneath that big tree, and inside the triangle part of the different legs of the garden. I see them sit on the other side of the koi pond. And Victoria, Allen, what do you see?
Yeah, I just see a lot of them coming out with material and stuff. So they're not just coming out and sitting there, but they're coming out and doing things out there. And it's also interesting around lunchtime is an interesting time as well, because it's not so structured. When they're out there just kind of, because they're eating outside right now, and they're loving this. They love eating outside.
The nice weather too.
Yeah, and then they can come out and they're just with their friends. They're just relaxing. They're talking. They're engaging. They're observing inside the flower beds and seeing what's all being planted and everything and what's growing. So it's just kind of a place to be for the kids. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the one time of the day where they're not expected to be straight line, go from here to here, like we have in the classroom, and it gets all those willy-nillys that our young ones have, where they get to go out, play, and explore, and they create their own rules, which is an important step in human development, is when they get to be like, okay, today we're going to do this game, a brand new game that we've never done. Let's invent our own rules and structure, which is something that we as classroom teachers don't have the opportunity to teach. We can't. It's showing us their leadership on their own when we empower them to use the space as they will.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, question for Brian. So the Take It Outside project clearly emphasizes the importance of connecting students to nature spaces on campus. So what is the potential of this project, as well as generally adding green spaces to school campuses to mitigate sustainability challenges such as extreme heat?
Yeah, so in 2 years ago when I first met Dr. Van Noss, and we discussed this project, as Victoria said, the first thing was just to make it safe. It is just not safe to be outside for several weeks into August and September, and then it starts becoming unsafe again mid-May. So the Paidea model is body, mind, heart, and spirit. First, we had to take care of the physical space to make it safe. Then we truly believe that the earth heals us, and that the more trees, I go backpacking, and Alan goes up onto the rim frequently, and the tree canopy and the spirit of the forest, the spirit of this heals our spirit. Also, there's a lot of research behind green spaces and social cohesion. So the more we can get into the shade, it provides this natural social connections and love and compassion towards each other. So I think what's going to happen is, first we'll make it safe to learn and play naturally outside, and then you're going to see this community social cohesion as we plant a forest through you guys and Trees Matter. This forest is going to surround Paidea with a nature walking path and a meditation path. So there'll just be this little island of forest, an urban forest right here in South Phoenix.
Yeah. And then I think from talking to Jenny Vanos from ASU, I remember she installed a weather station at your school a while ago. Have you been using that and kind of monitoring temperature changes or anything over time?
We do. We have the Weather Underground portal that shows that. There's also weather sensors all over the place at Paidea. And so, you can study heat, or you could study the solar energy and the ultraviolet, and you could study that more finely. because we have those tools right here on Paidea. And it's being integrated into the curriculum through Victoria and her.
Yeah. Do you want to talk more about that, Victoria? That's really unique, and I think really cool maybe for others to hear about. How do you actually incorporate real-time heat and beyond data when teaching students?
Well, it really depends on the units that they're on. So what we've tried to do is make it authentic to what they're actually learning about. So, you know, you have, there's many science standards, but not just science standards. You know, this can be incorporated in language arts, can be incorporated in poetry even. We had a class that was studying poetry, a 5th grade class studying poetry, and they were studying weather through poetry. And so there were science units, you know, around weather and around temperature, and then there were poetry units around nature and around weather. So the students studied these together, and then they wrote their own poems, and then they presented that on Zoom in their class, and it was recorded. So I think the idea is that it's not just something you learn in science class, things about weather and about temperature and about nature, but it can be integrated, you know, across the content. And that's really what our philosophy of education is about, that those things can come together in many different ways, other than instead of having separation in content areas.
One thing I would add to that is I've heard Jacoby and now Parker, Mr. Abel, talk about, we have now personal data for our little spot in the world, which brings more personal relevance to our students, and longitudinal. So we could start seeing, what was the weather like? What has heat been like? And the solar energy and UV and all that kind of stuff. Air quality is another sensor that we have. And so we can start to study that with other types of data, such as social emotional health and that kind of thing. And
yeah, and that's a lot of awesome place-based learning, I think, in a more kind of data-driven way. A lot of the times it's maybe community mapping or talking about your identity and your place in the world, but being able to say, our little pocket of the world is 10 degrees cooler than this other little pocket of the world. That's such a cool experience for students to get from a really young age. Great, so I'm going to talk a little bit about the Arizona Urban Forestry Education Initiative, which is a project that AZSA just launched. We, a few years ago, received some funding to develop a comprehensive K-12 urban forestry curriculum. There's a lot of great urban forestry curriculum out there. There's amazing teachers and curriculum designers like Victoria and Alan who are able to work with this type of content and create lesson plans on the fly and for years and everything. But we really wanted to create a multitude of resources for not only K-12 educators, but non-formal educators from around the state of Arizona to be able to teach using trees and green spaces and these types of areas that usually aren't considered and taught whenever you're in school learning to be a teacher or any sorts of things like that. So we developed this curriculum, and then we're really looking for a way to actually implement it in schools and communities. Curriculum is developed all the time in all sorts of ways. A lot of the times it may not get used because it gets buried in websites, or someone uses it once and then they forget about it. So therefore, this education initiative came to be. So AZSA received funding from the Arizona Department of Forestry and Fire Management to start this program. We will be hosting a series of K-12 educator workshops during the summer. So right at the peak of the heat, just to kind of really drive home the importance of forestry, getting those visceral feelings of, wow, it is really hot outside. We should plant more trees. We should do more in our outside spaces. So we'll be hosting a series of educator workshops over the summer. They'll be divided into 4 weeks. So each grade level unit will have their own week that we're focusing on. So K2, 3-5, 6-8, and then 9-12. And then during each of these kind of weeks of trainings, there'll be 2 4-hour-long virtual sessions to make sure that we're following our COVID safety protocols and not gathering indoors. And then on the Friday of each week, educators will have the option to meet at either a school garden or a local green space. We're working with local land agencies and parks and everyone to figure out the best places for these meetings. And then educators will actually get to practice using some of these lessons in outdoor settings, since not everybody has access to a Lear garden or newly planted trees like Paidea has. So we'll have teachers start to get exposed to the new ways of learning and teaching using urban forestry. And then all attendees will receive $100 stipends as a way to both incentivize and support this type of work. It's new. There's not all schools are like Paidea where their founder and president is supportive of this type of work. So it's really important to make sure that educators feel supported and adding new types of learning into their curriculum and their classrooms. And then after this kind of summer series of trainings, a few teachers will be able to develop their own field trips to local urban green spaces, and they'll apply. And then kind of whoever has the most thought out and planned one will receive some funding also from DFFM to be able to bring their students on a field trip that will be paid for. So we're really excited to just engage a lot of teachers, pilot this, get it off the ground, start to get urban forestry education into classrooms across the valley. We're focusing on low income and low canopy schools and districts. So those places where schools need trees and their communities can benefit from any sort of support for this type of work. So we'll have maybe a teacher or two from Paidea participating in this. And we're excited to be able to work with schools that are really passionate about incorporating urban forestry and green space into teaching and learning and community building and everything. Yeah, so it's been about 20 minutes, so I can ask you all a few more questions about your work. So Alan, I guess as a teacher, I'm curious, as these new sort of parts of the garden and trees and things are being planted, what are you most excited about with teaching and learning and mitigating heat in these green spaces?
I'm most excited about empowering my kids. I've been asking around at school, like, what do you see that you could do? I see that you're standing around right now, you're not playing with others. How can we make the space better for you? So I've slowly taking some notes about other ideas that our kids are coming up with and empowering them. And then also just having more year-round time where we can go outside and it's not too hot. A few years ago, it was November to February, and then after that, it's too hot. But now we're slowly stretching it out, and as our trees grow with our scholars, hopefully it will be more year-round that we can be outside and it's not too hot for everybody.
Yeah, definitely. My master's research at ASU was on nature journaling in school gardens, which also incorporates trees and green space, I think. So yeah, I think there's just so many ways to really have students reflect and also feel empowered to be able to use these spaces in new ways. It's exciting to hear. Victoria, you kind of mentioned having the group of educators that came together and were developing this project. What are your plans going into the future? What is that looking like for that group?
Well, I think that this is definitely an ongoing process. Anytime you are doing curriculum revision and review, that's cyclical,
Yeah.
But one of the things that we feel is going to be really important is just training and professional development around all of this as well, and not just our goal is not just to hand teachers a curriculum and say, okay, so now go outside.
Yeah. Which is so often done because no one has time or money or anything.
Exactly. So that's we know that won't work. So we definitely are planning for teacher voice and for training and helping teachers make that transition. They're used to being in the classroom. Many are not used to going outside, or they may not even know a whole lot about what it is to teach outdoors. So we want to be able to help to support our teachers rather than just throw new curriculum at them and tell them to get out and do it. So that's our next step is continuing to plan and prepare for the curriculum, but also to plan for helping our teachers make the transition.
Yeah, and that's why I think AZSA, we really wanted to start this project too, is for those reasons you just articulated, is that it's really easy to give someone curriculum. It's a lot harder to actually feel as a teacher, feel confident being able to execute that or implement that, or know that feel comfortable in outdoor spaces, since they're very different than classroom spaces. It's a whole new way of learning how to teach, but also how to manage your class at the same time. And that can be a barrier. So we're really excited that we'll be able to facilitate these trainings to help teachers just gain confidence and comfort and using outdoor spaces and trees, and kind of dig deeper into environmental and sustainability education in ways that they probably haven't before. So yeah, as usual, we're excited to be innovative and kind of break the molds. So I'm glad you all are on the same page.
I think eventually we're going to get to the point that the idea of structured recess is like we did that before, because they're going to be outside.
Yeah.
Neighbors might say, all right, hey, you know what? Let's just take 10 minutes and go balance on those logs, and let's just take a moment to go explore. And it won't be like, okay, now you have to play. We'll just be naturally taking care of our physical body outside as we learn. That's the hope.
Yeah, definitely. And I think you mentioned this earlier, Brian, but really, like urban forests and outdoor green spaces are so important for socio-emotional development of children and adults. And just being, I know there's research about just being around the color green and green spaces really helps with mood and stress and anxiety and all those types of things. So I can definitely see that unstructured recess time being just a reprieve for students during the day that they may not even know that they need.
Throw some baby goats in there and
some more kids.
More kids.
Exactly. Yeah. In my master's research, like I said, on nature journaling, my favorite part about it, even though it was in the school garden, the older students, they had the garden kind of grew in size with the students as they grew. So the 5th to 7th grade area had these beautiful pomegranate trees and like kumquat trees and everything. And then the teachers got to the point where they, in this nice weather, could open the doors. And then whenever the students finished their work early, they would actually go outside and kind of sit in the garden, and the teacher could keep an eye out them on the window. And it was just amazing to see how students they would just sit on the tables and the benches, and they just wanted to draw or read or kind of chat together. But they're surprisingly quiet. I think whenever you have big open grassy spaces without kind of tree cover, you get a lot of screaming and yelling and everything. So it was cool to see that students just felt calmer in those spaces. And really, it was just amazing to see, especially in really an urbanized area like in Arizona.
Even lunchtime, as I think Alan or Victoria mentioned, lunch inside the caffeinasium is this cacophony of screams, and it's just this high stress environment. Now that you're outside, there's no rush to eat. You don't have to, there's not like 15 minutes to eat. It's just chill out, relax in the shade, go play if you want to. You have 30 minutes break, eat, play, drink, whatever. And the whole, I don't know, I'd love to survey some of our teachers to see what that's now them coming in from lunch.
I see lots of pre and post surveys and interviews in your future as you build out all of these things. Yeah, and I just am excited that by adding more trees and green spaces, I'm sure as you're tracking kind of weather over time, or if you come in with some thermal infrared guns or whatever, you'll can track heat and know that it's cooler for students. They'll feel more comfortable. Teachers will feel more comfortable, and it'll build that more of that community like you were talking about. Yeah, very exciting. So last question. You had mentioned you'd done a tree planting with Trees Matter last speaker. So what types of trees did you plant? What's growing now at Paidea?
Alan, you want to take that one? Did you memorize them? I've got it.
So we got 2 carob trees, which we can eventually use the pods to make a cocoa supplement or replacement. We got a couple of tapao trees, which are supposed to have nice yellowing flowers in their canopies, and a few screw leaf mesquites.
Screw bean.
Yeah. Yeah, love that there's native trees there. That's so important for students as well.
Willow acacia, Tijuana trees. It's just
so exciting. So exciting. Yeah, and I think throughout the day we'll be hearing from other panelists about other tree plantings that we've done. We're excited to get just like Trees Matter, trees into schools everywhere so we can increase our shade canopy and really create those cool spaces for students.
Well, hello everyone. My name is Killoran. I'm the Arizona Sustainability Alliance Conservation Lead. And with me today, we have Marshall MacFarlane, the Parks and Facilities Manager for the City of Gilbert. Marshall, do you want to introduce yourself to everybody and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Kayla. My name is Marshall MacFarlane. I'm the Parks and Facilities Manager for the town of Gilbert. Currently, my division oversees around 1 million square feet of city facilities. That's around 52 buildings and over 700 acres of parks. So it's a pretty busy job. I've been with the town a little over 2 years. I'm a facilities manager by profession, and parks is a little bit new to me, but I'm really enjoying the experience of being involved in parks and working for Gilbert.
Awesome. Yeah, I know so far we've had a really great relationship between Arizona Sustainability Alliance and the City of Gilbert, and we're very thankful for you joining us here today, and so we can learn a little bit more about tree coverage and shade coverage in the City of Gilbert.
Yeah, well, thanks. I'm delighted to be here, and I too value our relationship already. We haven't been working together that long, but already it's producing results for us, and you have a great team, and I know my team enjoys working with your team as well, so it's been really cool.
Definitely. I just want to go back a little bit and kind of talk about, how our relationship started between AZSA and Gilbert. I find it kind of funny because I think our relationship originally started because of the Adopt-A-Park program and, initially wanting to get that going in the Gilbert Riparian, which, we have developed, but because of COVID and, trying to get everybody on board to find a certain time that works for everybody. We haven't actually set a date to have an Adopt-A-Park in the riparian, but, while we were waiting to come up with a certain date or a certain time that works for everybody, we, had 2 really great opportunities come up and arise that, we could plant some trees throughout the City of Gilbert, which it's kind of funny, our relationship transformed to, initially being just the Adopt-A-Park, and then, we've planted over, I think it was 45 trees for the city, which is great. But I just want to talk a little bit about our tree plantings in Gilbert. So, we had our first one at the Cosmo Dog Park. That one was pretty small, only about 9 trees. But if you could just tell us a little bit about, the impact in this area that the shade provided and how the shade will assist in the betterment of the area.
Yeah, sure. Well, I can tell you the citizens are delighted. One of my most common requests or complaints, depending on the day, from the users of the dog park was for shade around that, what we call the timid dog area. And it's a fairly small area, but it was right out in the open in the middle of the park without any shade. And it was one of the, like I said, it was one of the most requested things I've had from that park. So the citizens are delighted, and they understand they'll have to wait a couple of years for those trees to come up, but they're very excited. They're very grateful. And, there's an illusion that municipalities have big, huge budgets and all kinds of money to go around. And that's simply not the case. Gilbert's known for being lean and fiscally conservative. And every year the executive team and the town council make some pretty tough decisions because there's always more needs than there are money available. So, sometimes things like trees fall through the cracks, and the shade trees at Cosmo are pretty exciting. There's some pretty regular users there, and they're pumped up to have some shade coming down the pipe.
Awesome. That's really great to hear. And then obviously we had our second tree planting in Gilbert, which was a pretty large one. That was 36 trees at Crossroads Park. And, this one I think has a little bit more of a larger impact just because it's a bigger area. We planted more trees and more people utilize this area. Again, if you just tell us a little bit about like the impact, how shade is going to assist people and coming to the area more often or being more comfortable in the summer months.
Yeah, sure. And that planning was impactful for a number of reasons. And those trees are going to have numerous effects on that site. The way we've laid the trees out, it kind of differentiates and is going to provide an overgrowth of a path between some of our major sports fields there. And you know, those multi-use fields and the soccer fields and the football games, and it gets hot standing out there in the sun. And when we build those parks, we don't typically put shade trees in between the fields. So that's a really nice addition. It's going to look beautiful when it grows up, just the way that we laid it out. When those trees grow up, it's going to form like I said, an arch or a pathway down there, and it's going to be really nice. There's going to be some mitigating factors there. There's a planned go-kart track going kind of on the north end of that property, and trees, you know, as I'm sure your folks know, help mitigate sound, and so that'll help with some of the sound attenuation there. And then also with the dog areas right there, that'll help too. So lots of benefits for those trees, and we're really, really excited. And then finally, on kind of a happy, sad note, you know, you guys got to work with our field supervisor, Dave Gossman there, who recently passed away unexpectedly. And it was really cool to hear from you guys what an impact he'd made just working on that one project. And you know, when we talked to his family, we've said what an impact he's made just working with people. So that's kind of a bittersweet impact, but it's one nonetheless. And it just kind of goes to show how well our groups work together and how close we've become so quickly. So.
Definitely. Yeah, I'm glad you brought him up. I was actually going to mention him as well. And, you know, he told me, I forget how many years or how many decades he had been with the city, but, you know, it was a really long time. You could tell he loved what he did. He was super passionate about, you know, urban forestry and tree plantings and, you know, anything park related. So we were really happy that we had the chance to work with him and, you know, experience his passions as well.
Yeah, no, he's a good guy. He was a 25-year employee, and actually his wife and daughter were there that day, and we got to meet them. And our department's going to do some tree plantings in his name and honor, and I've tossed out some ideas. Dave was planning to make a little arboretum at the corner of the property there. There's this weird triangular piece of unused property that's just kind of overgrown, and we might do something there to kind of do a little memoriam moving on. So. But yeah, he was an arborist. He was our arborist on staff and had a ton of experience. And it was just, we're super sad to lose him, but he's certainly left a legacy behind as well. So
definitely. I think that'd be a really great way to honor him. You know, I think it's something he'd really enjoy. But great. Thank you for all that information. So I know that you said you haven't been with Gilbert very long, but, you know, you've been in this industry. You've been you know what you're talking about. You've been around the block. So
that's a polite way to say I'm old, right?
No, you just know what you're talking about. You've been in this You're very passionate and knowledgeable about, you know, all of these subjects. So I was just going to ask, and, you know, from your opinion and the opinion of your colleagues, you know, how have you seen Gilbert change over time? You know, in general, and then specifically related to trees and tree coverage and the shade that provides.
Yeah, so one cool thing about Gilbert, and even though I've only been there 2 years, I've seen changes since I've arrived, and they're really striving. The town manager has challenged us, and with the council's approval, and the mayor, of course, to be the city of the future, and we're taking kind of right before our very eyes. We're seeing a lot of innovation and kind of cutting edge things, and really trying to be that city of the future. And one example is the shade and streetscape master plan that they've taken a couple cracks at in the past, but hasn't kind of got off the ground, where they're really kind of going at it with gusto now. And I just pulled up the thing here to read it. It's being developed to create a healthier, more livable community through the strategic investment and maintenance and growth of the urban forest and engineered shade. And trees and shade structures are critical assets of the town infrastructure and require long-term strategy and implementation. The master plan will provide a roadmap to increase the shade canopy over the town's public lands. An increased shade canopy cover will reduce urban heat island effect and increase urban cooling and have quality air impacts. Elements of the plan will include a regularly updated tree inventory and GIS mapping, updated best practices for urban landscaping, such as proper pruning techniques and proper planting and watering techniques. This will make the trees more resistant to storms and disease, will determine the location to high priority. Guidelines will include a new urban tree palette, an updated planting and maintenance ordinance, the initiation of right tree, right place policy, highlights of nonprofit and private sector partnerships, and suggestions for implementing cost-effective green infrastructure and low-impact development. So they've put a lot of thought into this, and they're very methodical and strategic in their approach. And what they found is, now that they've kind of regathered the stakeholders and they're doing the visioning process of the tree and streetscape plan, in the past, you know, and this isn't uncommon in municipalities, the teams were working in silos. So someone would plant a bunch of trees, and there's no communication with public works that, hey, this type of tree is going to mess up our sewer lines, or this type of tree, you know, requires too much maintenance, or this type of tree, you know, does all these these things have implications. So now it's a very strategic approach. They're including the sustainability aspects of the urban heat island effect and that kind of thing. So they're being very thoughtful in how they approach it, while planning for the city of the future and recognizing the value of streetscape and shade. So, and to create a master plan for that, I think it's really cool.
That's really great. Yeah, I remember I was actually talking with Dave at Crossroads Park during our tree planting, and he had mentioned that I forget the specific tree, but they had planted one and it went under the wall and into people's yards and was causing chaos and destroying properties and stuff. So it's really great that, you know, you're utilizing, information available to you guys to pick trees that, you know, won't have detrimental impacts on, you know, surrounding communities, but will only be beneficial.
Yeah, that was probably a sisu. We've had a bunch of those in different areas that have encroached in people's property and like I said, damaged the walls and plumbing and all kinds of crazy stuff. So the other thing we're doing is we established a project where we GIS located and created a town inventory of our trees. And the surprising thing is, and it's roughly divided into parks and streets, but there's almost 7,700 trees on the park side of things and 5,300 on the street side of things. So there's almost 13,000 trees, and the estimated value of those is almost $31 million. So people think trees, but in the past, they didn't think of them as an asset or something that needed maintenance or something that had a strategic value. And now with that kind of GIS program, we look at trees as an asset, just like a building or a big chiller or a swimming pool or that kind of thing. And now we're managing that asset, so we can manage the 3-year cycle of pruning those appropriately instead of just reaction pruning. We can put a value on. We know how many trees of each species we have. We know their estimated replacement values. We can even calculate, our cool software shows how much carbon storage there is and avoided runoff and pollution removal and everything. So this type of program really allows us to demonstrate with data the effect that all these trees have on our town. So they're estimated to produce 453 tons of oxygen a year. That kind of stuff. I'm a geek for stuff like that. That's really cool. So
Really awesome. Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that because, in the past, I feel like, many people just see a tree and they don't necessarily see all of its benefits or its impacts. And so I think it's really neat that you guys are collecting data and storing that data and, potentially publishing that data to the public just so, everybody can see the actual impacts that trees have. It's not just a tree that maybe provides some shade, but, it has economic benefits. It has oxygen benefits. It has so many different benefits beyond, the public eye. That I think it's really great that you guys are doing that and that's incorporated into your systemic plan. So you kind of answered this a little bit, but going back, so you said, as Gilbert's growing, you've mentioned a little bit about your strategic plan and urban forestry as a whole, but, as Gilbert has grown, how important is sustainability and urban forestry into Gilbert's expansion?
Oh, yeah, it's very important. And I think part of our whole approach, again, is very thoughtful. And, as an example, we were just, and this is kind of facilities related, but kind of not, I'm involved in a project that's in the design stages for a family advocacy center. And for that type of center and that type of mission, there's a lot of thoughtful design elements that go into that because of the population we're serving. Folks are coming from a crisis environment. And, one of one of the things I brought up as the facilities manager, it was, you know, rather than the kind of typical turf or desert landscaping, we need to put raised beds in there to add color and vibrancy and to make it feel, you know, safer and happier as those residents come in to receive those kinds of services. So, you know, and the design team was all over that. They didn't even blink about it. So that's the kind of thing. And with our parks and facilities, you know, we've challenged our supervisors to develop other landscaping ideas like themed gardens, like edible gardens or Jurassic. We have a plan for a Jurassic garden. We're working on a Curandero garden. We have a sister cities garden that we're working on that will represent our sister cities in Ireland and China. That'll be at our regional park. So we're trying to incorporate different designs other than, desert landscaping, or we'll just plant more turf. So I think those kinds of innovations, along with the deliberate, you know, the tree planting strategies and the shade and that kind of thing, we're coming a long way. I'm excited, frankly.
Yeah, no, that's really great. I can tell how geeky we both are, you know.
Yeah.
I'm really excited about the future of tree canopies and planting more trees and more plant species in this area.
Well, the cool thing about, just sorry to interrupt you, but the cool thing that I like about the data side of it in the tree inventory is it bridges the gap between kind of, you know, and I find this in facilities too, sustainability things have always been, I don't know if stigmatized is the right word, but they've been almost brushed off as a feel-good effort and not necessarily pragmatic. And the cool thing about the data is it bridges that gap, right? So I don't care why we plant the tree, if it's to make somebody feel good or it's because there's an asset value to it, we reach the same conclusion. So it's cool to bridge that gap. And, you know, Gilbert's a data-driven, they make data-driven decisions. So when we can attach those types of values and replacement values and how much pollution or runoff that's saving and those kind of, and put numerical things on those, that just bolsters the activities of our sustainability efforts. So it's really helpful.
No, that's really great to hear. And so, you know, we're doing more tree plantings, you know, not only us, but other places in other cities, and, you know, City of Gilbert's doing other tree plantings as well. But, you know, as this tree canopy is expanding and growing, do you see any correlation between that and then how the city is expanding and it's growing more? Because I know Gilbert is, you know, has a huge population boom. You know, a lot of people are moving there right now. Do you see any correlation between, you know, planting more trees and more shade and the amount of people moving there?
Yeah, absolutely. I think as and kind of the tree and shade master plan, I think the catalyst of that has been all the development in the Heritage District, and we want a thoughtful approach to making, you know, and we get kudos all the time about our downtown district, but we want to be thoughtful in our approach with trees, and we want it, you know, visually appealing, and we want it as reasonable as we can to take care of. We want the right trees, you know, like the plan document said, the right trees in the right place. So I think the development of the Heritage District has spurred a kind of some attention towards things like trees and streetscapes. Certainly in our facilities designs now we're incorporating that, and certainly in our parks. We've incorporated that, and as our populations expand in Gilbert and we build more parks, the trees are an integral part of that. I think one of our new parks, and it was just the first phase, we had 700 and some trees. The other one we had 400 and some. So they're a very important part of our strategy.
That's amazing. Yeah, and that kind of goes into my next question. You've answered this a little bit, but I want to ask directly, you know, so with the impact of providing more shade and more trees at local parks and facilities around Gilbert, how have you seen that impact the community? Are more people showing up to the parks, or more people hanging out at the parks in times that, you know, might have previously been too hot? Just how is that shade really impacting these areas and allowing people to frequent more often?
Yeah, well, as soon as we plant them, we start getting comments from people. They can't wait to do it. And, you know, Gilbert, I don't know if Gilbert's competitive, but our digital government folks would point you to all the awards we've won, you know, and Cosmo's kind of a good example. Cosmo's won a lot of awards as a dog park, but the lack of shade in that timid area was to me a significant gap at that park. So we've already gotten the feedback that people love it. It's going to bring more people, and it's going to make a good park even better. So I think all these initiatives are noticed. I think the fact that we're partnering with nonprofits such as yourself, I think the citizens appreciate that. The citizens know that we don't always have as much money as we need, and the fact that programs like yours and your supporters help this it's the icing on the cake for us.
Yeah, I really love having, the tree planting events where, we have AZSA people coming out, and then we have the City of Gilbert people coming out. It's a great networking opportunity for everybody to meet and, like how you and I are doing, kind of geeking out about tree plantings and
right.
all of the benefits that reap from that.
Yeah, no, it's been great. And we're so excited to see what else. You guys had posted something on LinkedIn the other day about kids' science projects or something, and I tagged one of my coworkers who runs the programming at the riparian. I'm like, hey, here's more stuff for us to do with AZSA. So it's been really cool, and we love the relationship so far, and very grateful for you guys.
That means a lot. We love working with you guys, and that kind of goes into one of my last questions. But how do you generally view partnerships like the one that's the City of Gilbert and AZSA that we've kind of created? You talked on this a little bit, but.
Yeah, so it's kind of funny. So if I get a little bit personal, I'm really an introvert, and
I would never have guessed.
Well, and reasonably good at what I do, but a few years ago, I had a couple of colleagues teach me the value of networking, and how much better I can be at my job just by being more outgoing and networking and building these kinds of relationships. So personally, it's always hard. I mean, we do good at these events, but if you sat down at me next to a bus stop and I didn't know you, I'd never start a conversation. That's just me. But professionally, I've seen these, and my boss recognizes all the relationships I've built and the benefits to the town. So professionally, these type of relationships are key. And the fact that we like each other so much and get along so much just makes it even better. You know what I mean? Because there's some relationships you have to have just because you have to have them. Then there's other relationships that you enjoy having, and this is certainly one that I'm excited about. And just from day one when I met Ashley and all her team, I'm like, wow, these folks are cool, and she's kind of spitting out ways that they might be able to help, and it's been great. So relationships to me are, 10 years ago I probably wouldn't have admitted this, but relationships are a necessary part of our business, I think, now, and that's how we get things done that we can't get done the normal ways.
Definitely. Yeah, I think that's really great. I love our relationship. It's fun. We have fun while we're working. But at the same time, we're getting stuff done. We're making an impact in the community. So I think that's a really great way to spend time.
Yeah, me too. It's definitely fun.
All right. I have one last question for you. So in terms of the future, the future of the plantings we've already done, and then the future tree plantings that, we'll do with you, and then, possibly ones that you guys will do, by yourselves. How does that impact future growth? And how do you think this plays into making Gilbert's communities healthier?
Yeah, so Gilbert is very dialed into, and I've just spaced out on the name, but there's a national survey that they collect data on everything from incomes to happiness to how likely are you to move there, how likely are you to stay there, and Gilbert is very serious about those, and all of this kind of stuff is reflected in those scores, and we consistently score high, and it's because of our parks and because of our open spaces that to me already score high, but we want them to be even better for our citizens, and we want Gilbert to attract great businesses, and we want Gilbert to attract great families. So I think improving an already good existing set of parks and open spaces, I think just makes it that much more better.
Definitely. Yeah, it's really great to see and hear, that there's a seemingly direct correlation between, the amount of trees that are in the parks and all throughout Gilbert, and, how happy people are, and, the fact that they want to move to Gilbert. for a variety of reasons, but one of those being, as you mentioned, because there are so many trees and there is shade in this area. So it's just really cool to see that correlation between, the impact that shade can have in an area and people's happiness and willing to live somewhere.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think particularly when people move to Arizona from other places, they're used to trees and shade. So I think it's that much more important until they get acclimated to the heat that they have some trees to go under. So yeah, no, it's tremendously important. And again, I think even though we do well now in attracting families and businesses, I think we can always do better. And trees or parks and trees and all those things consistently score high in those areas that draw people to Gilbert.
Yeah, that's really amazing. Yeah, it's just, with this whole moderating thing and AZ Gives Day, it's really great to hear, everybody's perspectives about the impact of trees and shade. But then from your perspective, actually on the ground and, hearing people exclaim how happy they are that, we're doing a tree planting in an area where there was so little shade that they couldn't visit in the summer times or when it got hotter. So it's just really great to hear from your perspective as well on, how this is actually impacting communities and the shade coverage and, just allowing people to enjoy the outdoors that much more.
Yeah, and AZ Gives Day is important, and I know organizations such as yours rely on donors, and I can speak to anybody who asks about the effectiveness and the importance of your guys' mission and how well you carry it out. And I'm really hoping that you have a successful campaign today. So
yes, that's as well. But I think that was my last question.
All right. I think Kenda's getting ready to boot us off.
No, I really enjoyed listening to you two talk, and thank you, Marshall, for those kind words. AZ Gives Day is such an exciting day, and we have so many people talking about urban forestry and the work they're doing in the community and our partnership with them. It's just all very exciting, and we're so happy and glad to have partnerships like we have with you. So. Yeah, thank you guys for joining and taking your time to talk to our audience today. And I hope you guys.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
I appreciate the invitation very much, and you guys are rock stars. I love you all, so that's awesome.
Well, thank you, Marshall.
All right.
So I'll introduce myself really quickly. I am Cynthia Nesser, and I'm president of the board of directors, newly appointed, newly voted in. And Liz, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Thanks for letting me be here today with you. I'm Liz Johnston, and I'm director at City Forest Credits. And we are a national carbon registry and impact certification organization, and have had the pleasure of working with Arizona Sustainability Alliance this past year on a project in Mirage, just outside of Phoenix.
So I want to start in two different directions, but first, tell me about exactly what your organization is doing and how long they've been doing it.
Sure. So we, let's see, I've been with City Forest Credits for about 2 years, and we founded City Forest Credits about 6 years ago. So we're still in, the first beginning part of the phase of our organization. And we're really focused on financing pathways for urban forests across the country. And with that, really providing a way for companies to invest locally in great projects in their communities or in areas that they really care about, and also connect urban forest leaders to new sources of funding. Through carbon offsets that a company can purchase, or through funding certified impact projects like the one at Thompson Ranch School in El Mirage.
Oh, yeah. So tell me what exactly, if you can, in case someone doesn't know, what is a carbon offset?
Sure. So a carbon credit or a carbon offset is 1 metric ton of carbon dioxide. And there's lots of types of carbon credits. We're really a specialized carbon registry where we work just with urban forestry. So that's, trees that you plant or protect in cities and urban spaces where people live. So our carbon credits, they pull carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere and store it. So trees kind of act like a sponge, and they take it in and store it as they grow. And companies are, reducing their emissions, but they also want to buy offsets for what they can't reduce. And so we help them, provide the opportunity to be able to have those dollars that they're putting into kind of local climate action go to support urban forest projects like the ones that AZSA are doing.
Oh, wonderful. So tell me about the structure of how one of these projects works. Like who are the participants? How does it work out?
Sure. So a group like AZSA or a city or a land trust, they're going to be planting trees and protecting other existing trees. And they can follow rules that we have called protocols to be able to protect those trees or plant those trees for a certain time duration, following some technical rules that then allow them to generate a carbon credit that they can sell to a company that can buy that to offset their emissions. And the real piece of that comes back to really providing a funding mechanism or a way for the private sector to be able to fund urban forestry work. And that's with that carbon credit as sort of the thing that can be tangibly bought and used to offset emissions. But the other piece is really with impact certification is they're planting projects that are maybe not as big of a scale or as long of a time duration or technical as a carbon project, but they still have really great impacts and benefits for the community. And so with those, a company like in this case, Microsoft, who has a data center in Phoenix, wanted to support a project that Arizona Sustainability Alliance was leading. And so my role at City Forest Credits was to provide that framework for that project to happen, and then to be able to have really demonstrated human health, social equity, and environment benefits that the company can report on so they know they've made a good investment.
That's wonderful. So the funding goes towards what, the tree stock and the volunteers, of course. AZSA supplied the volunteers, and then the funding goes towards the materials and planning, right?
Yeah, it goes for all of that as well as the design. So really a lot of the things that go into planting a tree happen before the trees are even planted. It's, the discussions with where are you going to plant those trees? Is it city property? Is it school district property? There's a commitment to taking on a new tree on land and taking care of it. And so discussion about where it's going to be, and especially then, if it's a neighborhood that doesn't have a lot of trees, are you increasing access to green space or other benefits that trees provide with shade and cooling the air, and having discussions with community members and others about how those trees will be cared for after they're planted. So the funding can go to all of those things in addition to those fun days where you get to plant trees and get outside and do something with your community.
So it's not just a one-off, it's kind of a full plan, implementation plan.
Exactly.
Okay, and then and there's so many elements. When I was reading about it, it's a full quality of life. Tell me about some of the elements when you say urban forestry. What does that mean to the public?
Sure. So trees, trees are all over our cities, and they're in parks, and they're those areas that are maybe like right between a neighborhood, residential ownership and the street, like a right of way, and they provide lots of benefits for you, for cleaning the air and cooling the air. Definitely important in Arizona. And then they also can provide a lot of benefits when there's really extreme climate events, like maybe there's a flood and there's a lot of rain that comes down all at once, the trees and the tree canopy can slow that rainwater so it doesn't hit the ground quite as quickly, kind of be that sponge and absorb the water a bit, or slow it down. And those are things that are just kind of the tangible benefits, but also trees can provide a lot of great ways to help with mental health and physical health, and they look lovely as well. So there's, you know, the visual and aesthetic benefits too. And so with all of that, you get that just from having trees, which is a pretty amazing thing, to be able to have so many benefits from, you know, a few trees and some green space in a neighborhood.
Yes, I heard that there's quite a few studies on this peaceful elements to having trees, that it even affects crime levels. Yeah, it's a quality of life thing, and also improves real estate values. So it has many benefits. So tell me about the project with AZSA. It looks like it was fairly large.
Yeah, so AZSA used our impact certification, and they identified a property working with American Forests and their tree equity score for a neighborhood that had low tree canopy. And that's like that first filter level of where's a tree project possible to happen. And then it was really work that the AZSA team did to talk to the school district, talk to the individual elementary school, find a site that wanted to have some trees, and then figure out where were they going to go. So in this case, at the elementary school, I believe they planted 53 trees, and they planted them right where kids are out in the playground, where they're waiting for the school bus or their parents to pick them up, places where they're going to be outside and they need some filter and shade from trees. So they were able to, you know, design the spaces that are going to have the most benefit for children, but also be able to plant, you know, drought-resistant trees, species that are going to do best in that climate zone, and then work with I believe the principal and some of the school classrooms to be able to kind of adopt different trees that they will take care of, and be able to learn about those benefits of trees as they see them grow and they go out to the playground, and be part of, you know, their everyday life. So kind of the role that we played at City Forest Credits is we don't do the on the ground work. That's what AZSA and others in the community are doing, but we're providing that framework for a project to be designed and to look at things that are important around social equity, how the trees are planted, and then human health, you know, especially with children and other sort of urban heat effects, and then environment, having the right trees, you know, in the right climate zone, right place.
Yeah.
And then we've got a great report that we can share at the end. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yep. And then we have a report that we can share with the funder, in this case, Microsoft, that links back to the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, which are what many companies are reporting on. And hopefully this can be a case study that other companies and others in Arizona are excited about and want to, you know, replicate and lead similar projects, because I know there's a lot of great places that would like to have more trees, and are just needing some funding to do it.
So who comes to you? Does the company come to you and then you look at an area, or maybe they suggest an area and then you go out and look at the different players, like maybe a local charity to do the work, and then help them plan, and then, you know, is that what you're doing?
Yeah, we have a couple different ways. So we have a website, cityforestcredits.org, and we have a directory of all the impact projects where some of them already have their funding and they're designed and they have, you know, a little information about them, waiting for a company to fund them. And we also have places where a company's already decided they're ready to fund a project of some kind in an area. In this case, it was in the greater Phoenix metro area. And we could connect them with Arizona Sustainability Alliance and other partners to say, here's a great organization that knows what to do, that's integrated in the community, that can plan a good project for you. And so sometimes it's matching up, you know, both sets of interests and making sure that they're good partners. And in this case, you know, I think it was a real success.
And who does the impact study? Do you pretty much put together the impact survey?
We do. So it's we have something called an impact scorecard, which is kind of like a menu of design choices. And it's about things like site selection and process and other things that are all linked back to scientific and academic studies, as well as those kind of internationally agreed upon sustainable development goals that businesses want to report to. And so with that, we can pass that framework or that information off to the group that's starting the project locally, and they can review it and decide which pieces to include that makes sense based on the context in the community. And then they will document what they're doing, and we will issue an impact report that can be used for the company that's funding the project, as well as the group leading the project, to be able to use, like I was kind of saying, like as a case study or to motivate, hopefully, more projects. Because once you've done one project, you kind of understand how it works. You've also probably had a lot of discussions about things you couldn't do because you had limited capacity and funding, and hopefully can kind of keep doing similar projects where there's like the most desire and need to do so.
So you do a heavy amount of collaboration to try to find the different partners that you need, and even finding who does the stock of the, you know, finding the nursery. I mean, is that what the charity does, or?
Yeah, in this case, AZSA is doing all of that. So I believe they've got some good partners, and they know nurseries locally that they like to purchase from. But yeah, they're definitely the experts in that space. Being a national nonprofit like we are, we kind of try to provide those resources and that framework and really that access to funding from the private sector. But we leave all of the details to the local groups that know how to do their work best.
So are you finding a big uptick in interest, especially with hot Phoenix area? Are you finding a huge uptick, especially, and also with corporations really getting into sustainability reporting? Are you seeing an increase in activity?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, just this past year or so during the pandemic has been obviously very tough on lots of individuals and businesses. However, I think there's at the same time been a real time to reflect and think about where we want to be putting our dollars as individuals when we are making purchasing decisions, but also companies are doing that. And you're seeing a lot of climate commitments and social impact and environmental justice and equity discussions and commitments. And so I think the private sector is wanting to be leaders and wanting to take care of our environment and people, and knowing that those things, you know, are going to come together when you're talking about city trees. You can definitely leverage your impact and your dollars by supporting tree projects and the people that are part of those, and really kind of bringing together the economic and human health and equity and environmental goals all together into one project.
Yeah, I'm starting to notice that even though public companies do a lot for their stockholders, but they're also thinking with their employees now, wanting them to be more socially conscious companies, that they're also doing it for their what I consider stakeholders, which are their employees that are more demanding about what the company is doing for the environment and for the community. So are you finding not only public companies, but private companies are really getting involved?
Yeah, I think there's something about city tree projects, because you can actually go out to that neighborhood or to this place that's, you know, relatively close by, and you can participate and you can see those trees, and you can see them, if you're planting them, you can see them grow and continue to, you know, thrive and flourish. And there's something about the prominence and the accessibility and that opportunity to engage and actually, you know, get your hands dirty and plant trees, but also care for them as they're growing. That is, I think, very appealing for a lot of companies, for their employees, as well as their stakeholders. And we really say, you know, like, it's right where people are, like, they live, work, and play in cities. And so why not make our cities as green and equitable and healthy as possible?
To save some of the concrete, cool it down a little bit. And how, you know, how much offset temperature-wise? I mean, these I've heard about a heat island effect. Do you know? Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things. It's going to depend on what part of the country you're in and how many trees are planted and where, but anywhere between, I think it's 2 and 10 degrees Fahrenheit change can happen from planting trees, really reducing that summer temperatures so that they're cooled by having trees there, but also providing shade. So when you have, you know, hot sun beating down on concrete, or it's called like an impervious surface, something that water can't get through, it then radiates, you know, back up. And so you just kind of get trapped in this cycle of the heat not having anywhere to go. And then you feel it, and it's very hot. And in some cases in Arizona, extremely hot. And so with having more trees, but also just more green space of all kinds, you're able to have that natural sort of ecosystem function better, and be able to help buffer against kind of some of those extreme heat and other sort of climate events.
That is wonderful. It sounds great. Especially, I love it in inner city and in the schools, and being able to go out and see it's instant gratification and it's long-term gratification to see them grow and fill out. So are you running into any challenges that you're having to overcome?
I think sometimes the challenges are just everybody wants someone else to start. You know, it's hard to take that first leap sometimes to try out something new. And so really grateful to AZSA for really being one of those pilot projects for impact certification. Because we started as a carbon registry, and we still very much are, but we have learned that not everybody can take on a carbon project. You know, for planting, it's a 25-year time commitment, because trees need to grow for a certain amount of time to really be able to provide offsets that are meeting the carbon industry standards. And a 25-year time commitment just isn't possible everywhere, but we still want to have a way for more trees in our city areas and urban areas. And so with the impact certification, gets a little bit messy when you're trying things out for the first time, but really appreciated everyone at AZSA for really being leaders and stepping up and saying that they would, you know, design a project with whatever funding was available, because they're so committed to advancing urban forestry. And I think the challenge is getting more companies to provide funding for projects like this one. And so just getting the word out there is part of it, but also being able to be able to see how these benefits are happening right away. You know, I can't speak for how those kids' experiences on the playground, but I can only imagine it's pretty meaningful for them and will continue to be so. So I think we just want to get more and more companies to invest and really invest in their neighborhoods where they feel like they'll have the most benefit.
Right. So are you to the point where your website even just identifies areas like these areas need sponsors or they need this, and so you have some like basically a shopping list of areas that really do need to be addressed?
We have a couple, but I wish we had, it'd be great if we had just even a standalone, like 5 places in Arizona that are ready for projects to be started tomorrow if there was money available. We're not quite there yet. We only have 3 of us on staff at City Forest Credits. So that's probably my job, to be able to make sure everyone's aware the opportunities are there. But, we're ready to help anyone in Arizona who wants to get a project started. We just need the companies sometimes to provide that funding first, to kind of jumpstart things.
Yeah, to help you out with the sheer labor of identifying certain areas. So you're saying there's carbon offset and then there's impact certification. So there's 2 different ways to address it, because inner city, sometimes in heavily concreted areas, you may not be able to guarantee 25-year lifespan, but you can do an impact certification for those areas, which are still great for corporate social responsibility reports, things like that. You want to clarify any of that?
No, that's very well said. I think the other thing I would add is as discussions continue around environmental justice and equity, equity is not simple. It's not about just planting more trees. It's about planting them with community designing and understanding the context of where those inequities are and what's happened in the past, and what do community members want to see. And so those are not simple, straightforward things, but when groups are committed to building those relationships and really making sure that everyone's voices are heard and part of the process, I think you end up with a much better result. So impact certification or certified impact projects are just one way to be able to make that happen. But I really hope that they are successful and of great benefit to the work that AZSA is doing.
That is so exciting. And so how long ago was the organization founded?
We were founded in 2015, so 6 years ago. And yeah, I can't tell you what will happen in the next 6 years, but I feel like it is definitely an interesting and exciting place to be right now. And it's really wonderful getting to go visit these projects and see them in person as well.
I can just see it exploding with all. I really watch what's going on in corporate America and the trends of the corporate social responsibility projects, and I can just see this really taking off, especially the way that you're working with the collaboration. Thank you so much. This is wonderful. Anybody have any questions for Liz? I mean, this is a fabulous project base and organization.
Thank you, Cynthia. It's been great to talk with you.
Thank you.
And hello, everyone. It's wonderful to be here with you all today on AZ Gives Day. My name's Allie, Halbert. I use she, her pronouns, and I serve as Programs Director at the Arizona Sustainability Alliance. And today I'm really fortunate to get to be here in connection and collaboration with Derek Castaneda, who is the Environmental Compliance Coordinator for the City of El Mirage. And Derek, I wasn't sure if there's anything else that you would like to add about you or in the work that you do over at the City of El Mirage.
I've been with El Mirage about 2.5 years. It's a great place. I love it. I'm originally from, I'm one of the few natives from Arizona, so I grew up on the West Valley, so this is pretty close to home for me. So, and we're just, I'm proud of the work we're doing here, and we, want to serve our citizens as best as we can. So.
Wonderful. And that's exactly what I hope to talk to you more about today is the work that you're doing in El Mirage, areas that you're currently experiencing growth in and areas that you hope to see more collaboration with other nonprofits throughout the region. So to start things off, I'd be really curious to learn more about how the city of El Mirage has changed over the past few years. Have there been new challenges or any new opportunities?
So I've only been here about 2.5 years, so I haven't seen too much change. But I used to spend some time on this side of town, when I was growing up. And Mirage was just basically, a small little suburb, and nothing around it but fields and desert. And we've definitely grown with our city assets, our streets. We have like a 4-way, 2 lanes each way road, El Mirage. And I remember when back it was just 1 lane with a stop sign. So we have street lights now, but that's been over a decade or so I've seen that change. But definitely more recently, El Mirage is kind of 2 stories. Our north side is really residential. It boomed up during the housing when it was exploding in Arizona. And then the south side's kind of always stayed farmland. And now that's kind of converting to industrial commercial development. And we're excited, to see, that growth. Microsoft, which, was one of our big, developers, recently built a big data center down there. And we got a couple other developments going on down there as well. So it's basically split into like a north residential and a south commercial and industrial. And we're seeing growth in the south side currently.
So it sounds like there's been lots of opportunities for growth within the city of El Mirage thus far. With all this growth, have you all experienced any new or unforeseen challenges along the way?
I would say water has been an issue. So, we've been serving, about 40,000 people water the last, decade or so. And now that, we're having these, corporations and companies come in, and sometimes, like a data center will use a lot of water. So it's kind of stressed our system a little bit. We've had to, make sure everything's running optimal, and especially, on the wastewater side, water, you have water go in, you have the water come back. And then, so, our plant's rated, about 2.5 to 3 MGD, million gallons per day. And, when that water comes back, we had to do some improvements to our plant to kind of make sure we can handle that. So water is a big issue for us right now. So.
Yeah, water conservation, it does really seem like it's an emerging issue and will continue to be so as you continue to collaborate and work alongside all of the new growth that's occurring in the city.
Yeah.
Now, I'm really curious to learn more about really the sustainability work that's going on in the city of El Mirage. And so I know you've been in your role 2 years. In the past 2 years, what has been surprising for you and what's been really exciting for you within the scope of your work?
I would say what's kind of been surprising is that El Mirage doesn't really have, well, I've come from a lot of bigger cities. I've worked for Mesa and Phoenix, and these cities that have lots of people have been established for a while. And I guess what was surprising is coming to a small city is that people have multiple roles. So, everybody here has, 3 or 4 jobs, where you come from a bigger city, like, only one person will focus on, water resources, or one person will focus on, water quality or sustainability. So it's hard being pulled in many directions here because, part-time I'm working on water quality, making sure the water is safe. Other times I'm making sure that we have enough water for the future. And then, in my spare time, I do a little bit of sustainability and conservation. And I really enjoy that part. I think that's the part I like about being here is that you get to experience a lot of different sectors. And then I kind of get to see how they kind of mix together. So like, with trees, I handle stormwater permits for the city. But like, trees are important because, they help with water quality, and stormwater pollution. And then, I'm also involved in an air quality group here. And you see how trees can kind of, influence pollution, certain trees are better at, clean the air, and certain ones kind of give you, pollen, and kind of could cause issues for some people. So it's interesting to see something how trees kind of impacts many sectors of my job, and other people at other cities may not get experience that because they're only focused on, water conservation or like air quality. So I kind of get to see the whole picture when it comes down to something like a tree or something.
That's really cool that you get to have an interdisciplinary approach to the scope of your work, is what I'm hearing.
Yes, and it keeps the job very exciting. It's both frustrating because you can't focus on something you want to do all the time, but it does keep it exciting. So.
Oh yeah, the idea that no day is the same, I'm sure, fits well with your job description.
Yeah.
What are some growth areas that you're expecting to see within the sustainability world in El Mirage?
I would say conservation program. We recently received a grant from an ADWR to start a conservation program, so we're really excited about that. And then we've actually got funds budgeted for conservation, which is something that we normally haven't had in the past. So we're really pumped about the moving forward with conservation, providing on some new programs for our city and our residents and possibly businesses as well.
Are you able to share any other details right now about these conservation programs?
Yeah, sure. Right now we're having part of the funds are going to go towards the Xeriscape program. So we're in the process of developing that. So we're looking at, grass is beautiful, and but it's not, most beneficial here all the time in Arizona. It uses a lot of water. It doesn't provide shade. It's more for looks. So we're looking at maybe potentially, if people are interested, we don't want to force people, to take out the grass if they want to, but maybe if we could, provide some funds for them to maybe, pull out some of that high water use grass and put in some, data or, desert landscaping. And we're also looking at maybe, encouraging them to plant trees as well. If you plant a tree, maybe we'll be able to give you a $50 rebate on your utility bill. Because we also want that, shade benefit as well. One thing that's interesting in past year, it was a very hot year, and we almost saw about a 10% increase in our water use from the prior year. So some of that's growth. We are a growing city, but a lot of that was from a very hot summer, and whatever we can do to kind of avoid that heat island effect and bring down our temperatures, saves us water. So it kind of shows how trees can kind of connect back to everything. They have a ability to impact different areas. So
yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm sure that folks who've been participating or joining in today really can understand and see the scope that trees impact us in so many different ways. And so it makes me really happy to hear that within the scope of your work, you're able to get to do different project-based work within the sustainability front, but the way that trees impact you throughout all of those different content areas really demonstrates that we need our trees, and we really need to be doing more as a collective we to put some more trees in the ground.
Yeah, so. I agree. So
awesome. And can you share more about what needs your city has regarding sustainability?
Like I said, the water, very important. And we've been lucky too, sustainability wise. We haven't had to cut our recycling programs like some cities have, had. It's a changing market, and recycling such a very complicated. It depends on global players, and we've been able to keep that part of our program going for our residents, so they can continue to recycle, their cans and their bottles. And we've also pushed on. We're trying to, and there's a contamination. I don't know how much you know about recycling, but some of the issues is the contamination rate in the recycling bin. So we've launched some educational programs and campaigns to kind of educate, people, hey, make sure you're not putting pizza boxes in those recycling bins. A lot of people will be like, oh, it's cardboard, it goes, but that grease, makes it unusable. So that's a very important part of our program here. And then along with that, we will, Christmas time comes, people use real trees. So at the end of that time, we want to provide a service, and we offer to recycle Christmas trees. So residents can stop in and drop off their used trees, and we'll go ahead and send it to a company that'll ground it down and mulch it and turn it into some sort of resource that we can reuse. And then this past year, which is something pretty exciting, is we started a grease program. So when the holidays started coming, people could come bring the grease, dump the grease. It'll be turned to fuel or feed for animals, and rather than going down our drain and possibly clogging our pipes. So it's multi-beneficial use right there. So those are just some of our exciting sustainability programs going on in the city right now.
I hadn't heard about the Grease initiative. That's so innovative. I mean, how many folks some folks just truly don't know that you're not supposed to put grease down your drain. And I don't know, there's lots of folks out there like me who has multiple little containers in their freezer full of grease that just take up tons of room. And I reached that point of like, okay, what am I supposed to do now? And so I love hearing that you're utilizing that in a really innovative and sustainable way.
Yeah, and the reason, we weren't trying to necessarily be, sustainable, but, the issue came from us having blockages in our pipes. And when you had a block in your pipe, it busted and caused a mess, and we have sewage everywhere. So, the motivations, service and, money. And, at the end of the day, a lot of things come down to money. So if we can limit the amount of sewer going down the drain, that saves money for our taxpayers, saves money doing maintenance and fixing pipes, or, clearing out clogs, and then lets our employees, and such being a small city as well, we don't have a huge staff. So if we have staff always cleaning out, sewer blockages, then they can't be doing other things and maintaining our system. But yeah, it's been multi-beneficial. So we like projects that help on many different areas. That's for sure.
Yeah, I think the idea around like, if we're able to take an issue and find a sustainable solution for it in the front end versus the back end, where it's like, how can we help our people now by utilizing a sustainable measure? We're saving dollars ultimately. And I think that really goes to show that like the way that we invest our money or the way that we utilize our money can have lasting impacts. And so I love to hear that you all are doing this really cool, robust educational campaign, not only with this program, but with some others for the longer term positive impacts for our dollars, our pocketbooks, as well as our communities and ecosystems alike.
Yeah, I mean, and being a city, we always have to worry about tax. We're using taxpayers' money, so we have to justify everything we do. And sometimes, the benefit's not upfront. Sometimes it's in the long term. So, for educating people, that's an investment in the future. And, these kids grow up and they know what to do with their grease. So it's all about the benefit for our community. And that's our main goal for everything.
Exactly. The community is what brings us here, right? The communities are why. Couldn't agree more. Now, how can a nonprofit like AZSA support the work that you're doing in El Mirage?
I met Ashley. I think I met her once or twice through some groups that, we're involved in with. But first time I started working with her was, with the tree planting at the elementary school, Thompson Ranch. So that was a great experience. I kind of got to talk to her, and she let us know what she was doing and wanted to know, what can the city do? And we offered our help, whatever the city can do, we'll promote it, we'll help, so we went through that with her, and building a relationship has kind of had us talking about other projects. So I think it was a good, breaking the ice between the two groups. So we're looking at, possibly beautifying. We own, some well sites around the city where we get our water from. So we're looking at possibly, adding some landscaping and, and if we can work with them, they have the expertise when it comes to trees and planting. Maybe we can take their advice and work on a project and involve the community again and beautify our well sites and provide, shade and provide, cleaner air and, just make our city a more beautiful place and enjoyable for our residents. So I think the biggest benefit is just kind of building that connection with Ashley and her group. And now we can maybe move forward on some other projects in the future.
That's awesome. And to wrap things up, I would love to hear really from you what your vision is, or like if you could dream big and see XYZ certain project or initiative happen, whether that's an El Mirage or not, what would you love to see happen? If you could, sky's the limit.
Sky's the limit. I would say El Mirage, like a lot of cities, have we have like drainage channels, kind of like washes, and right now they're not very appealing. They're kind of barren and not good places for the community to kind of use. So I would love to see, some cities have these great greenways and, walking paths and, people can go out and exercise. I'd like to see some of maybe our areas kind of, plant some trees, provide some shelter, some wildlife, also, help filter the storm water. So, again, multi-benefit use on, and, bring maybe some more, nature and kind of, allow for, especially with COVID, it showed the importance of being able to go outside and enjoy your neighborhood. So I think that would be a dream, to kind of beautify these washes we have and provide, more benefits for our community.
And a lot of what I hear within that too is access, like increasing access for individuals that, like, what does it mean to create this landscape or create this system where people are wanting to come to these areas to enjoy the outdoors, that all people are able to utilize these spaces and enjoy these spaces. And so that's a really big component of the work that we do, is increasing access. And I can hear a lot of the similar sort of talk or similar points from your end as well, that ultimately, again, we're doing this for the people who live within our communities. And if it's not for them, then what are we doing? So.
Yep, I agree.
Well, with that, Derek, is there anything that you would like to share that I haven't already asked you about?
And I just want to say, we appreciate your partnership, and, an organization like you is very helpful, especially to a smaller city like El Mirage. We don't have the resources to move forward with these projects sometimes, but having groups like you and that can kind of, take the lead and provide the expertise on this, it's very important to smaller cities and utilities or communities. So we just want to say thank you, and then look forward to working with you in the future.
Oh yeah, I'm all about building capacity. We're stronger together, and we love getting to work with cities just like El Mirage. So thanks for your collaboration in this work too, Derek.
Yeah, no problem.
My name is Jessi Campbell, and I'm the Glendale City Liaison for Arizona Sustainability Alliance. So I am here to discuss the importance of getting involved in your community with Jason Minnick, the Director of Communications and Marketing for our very own Phoenix Rising soccer team here in the Valley. Hello, Jason.
Hey, how's it going?
Doing very well. Good to see you in person. I know we chatted on the phone a little bit, but nice to finally meet you, I guess, as it were. Can you go ahead and tell everyone a little bit about yourself and your role that you play at Phoenix Rising?
Sure. So I grew up in Pennsylvania, lots of trees up there. So when I had to start reaching out to charities here in the Phoenix area and get Rising involved in the community right away, Sustainability Alliance was the one they're out there planting trees. So anything that makes Arizona cooler, I'm down for. So our players are 100% on board in the community efforts. Zach Lubin, our goalkeepers, probably lead the way if I had to make a guess on which guy on the squad puts in the most of his time. He's really down for anything at all. So I guess it helps out with our supporters. They've been out there as well with the tree plantings a few times. It's just what the fans want. They want the club to be part of the community, and that's very cool. Go out there anytime, anywhere. Whatever the charity is, we have a whole list, stuff like that to help the club get involved in the community.
That's great. So your particular role with the team is the marketing director, right? And communications, PR, whole 9 yards. What exactly does that entail when it comes to creating that connection in community? Regardless, I know you've been all over the United States, so what does that normally entail?
Well, I guess specific to soccer, other than like the mainstream, NHL, NBA, NFL baseball teams, the supporters are part of the game. They're kind of like that 12th man. I know they throw that around in the football as well. But in soccer, it's kind of really just part of the game worldwide, no matter where you're from. Each club has its own unique supporters group that just are crazy throughout the game. They're supporting the team, chanting, singing, distracting the other team, all that stuff. So when it comes to off the field stuff, I think those groups are involved more actively, just like in the game, outside, off the pitch. They'll come out and plant trees. They'll come out and do whatever they want. They want to be part of the team, part of the community.
That's great. Can you go into a little more detail about what kind of roles they play in the community? What kind of organizations they're getting involved in, obviously besides us, but just kind of in a general scope?
Sure. So Boys and Girls Club, Arizona Welfare League, and SPCA is a local group we reached out to. It's on the animal side. I know anything cat and dog related is gold online. So our supporters and fans are sure will get behind that. We'll probably do that later in the year. We have one coming up. Basically, we designed a calendar for each month. We support one charity, and I can go through the list. United Food Bank. We're doing something with through State 48. Pride Month will be a big one for us. Aguila Youth Leadership Institute. We did something with them last year around Hispanic Heritage Month. Being on the reservation now with Gila River Indian community, we'll probably do Indigenous Day later in the year. We had a few training sessions with them just specifically about that tribe and what they've gone through the last 2,300 years. We heard it all, and we did like a on-site authentic medicine man blessing the land. So make sure that they were cool with us coming out. We want to be very respectful of their land and what we're doing on that end. But yeah, we basically want to design a t-shirt, a custom designed rising t-shirt, and then whatever we make, we give to that charity that month. So
I do love that, and I did want you to discuss that a little bit. Do you have that image to share on your screen, or?
Yeah, I can bring it up. If you want to give me 1 second, I can switch it over here. I'm on a different computer today. Sorry about that.
Oh, sure, no worries. And maybe you could just talk a little bit about how people could find each month's design. So you said, if I'm understanding correctly, every month you'll support a different cause or charity, and then you guys design T-shirts around that particular cause, correct?
Yep.
So this particular month, you've got a pretty neat design, and I won't ruin it for everybody. And if you pull it up, but supporting this particular cause and our efforts and our initiatives. So I really love that idea. And yeah, just some information on where people could find or purchase these T-shirts.
Yeah, so they'll be on phxrisingfc.com. There's a shop link in there. So we have a partnership with Just Sports. They're the ones that produce this T-shirt. Once we create the design and finalize all that, it went pretty smooth. Usually I get one back from my designer and it has 50 changes on it, but this one went pretty smooth. I think we only had the date wrong, which is typical for us, but we figured it out before we hit print, and it should be ready to go here if I can bring it up.
And you said how many of the proceeds go to the charity or to the cause support?
Yeah, we usually don't take any money off of these. I know the first one I was involved with was Rising Against Racism back last summer, and I'm pretty sure 100% went. I mean, we pay for the shirts, and I don't even think we pay for the designer because he's on board with us. So
yeah,
yeah. 100%.
No, that's amazing.
All right.
Feel free to share your screen anytime.
I'm trying.
Well, while you're looking for that, I know you do you said a lot of work out on the res, and because you guys are out there in the East Valley and you're close by, where have you seen the most need? Oh, here we go. I think it's actually working. There we go. So there is the Phoenix Rising Earth Day, Arizona Sustainability shirt design, and per Jason, you guys can find that on their website in their shop. Thank you so much for showing that. That is fantastic. I know a lot of people are going to be really interested in that.
Cool. Yeah, no
Very
problem.
cool.
Sorry it took me so long.
No, that's okay.
I actually pulled up the wrong with the wrong date on it, so I had to switch that out real quick.
No worries at all. Okay, so back to, I was just asking where you seem to see the most need around here. You've been here in Phoenix for how long now?
Just over a year, yeah.
Okay, so you've come from different areas of the country with a lot more shade, a lot more rainfall, not as heat stressed, obviously, as we are here in the Valley with our heat island effect. And you're right next to one of the reservations here in Arizona. You do a lot of work with them. Where do you feel the biggest need is for more community involvement, more initiative from organizations and companies such as yours?
I mean, you teed it up pretty good there. I'm being from somewhere with a lot of shade. I would definitely say anything to make this place cooler is definitely top of the list. Like I said, I said before, the animal charities are big for everybody. I have 2 dogs of my own, so anything we can do to help the animals. And I guess a big one for us would be our opening night.
Okay.
We're playing San Diego Loyal. There'll be a big pride initiative, inclusivity, things like that nature. I mean, that's just hot button item right now across the planet.
That's great.
So it's a big thing for us. We're doing a lot of things with them, with San Diego coming into town. And then we'll turn around and do it again on our second match. I just took it down so it wasn't in the background here. But our second match against them is Saturday, June 5th, which is Pride Month. So we'll probably have corner flags that are designed around that theme. We'll have some armbands, some shoelaces that are around that, and all supporting the charities involved in that initiative, which is a Phoenix Gay Flag Football League that we've been working with. They're going to play. I don't know if it's public yet, so I'll probably stop there. I have to talk to them after this,
okay.
But they might be out there. One Community is our local charity that we're going to work with during the game, and You Can Play nationally came down and did some, like I said, inclusivity training, things about around that nature. And we did a video with our players in uniform, kind of a marketing video that we'll play before every match.
That's great. Love to hear all that. Now you've been involved with AZSA previously. You guys have been involved in some tree plantings. How did Phoenix Rising initially get involved with AZSA? Was it just, well, I'll let you answer.
I think I reached out pretty early on when I got here. I just saw, it was one of the first ones to pop up that made a lot of sense. I know our players, Joey Calistri has been a player that's been around Arizona for a few years. He's from Illinois. I think you mentioned that right before we started. So maybe you can chat him up at one of our games. But he was really into being outdoors, and he said anything outdoors related, sustainability related, environmental impact. He wanted to do something like that. So behind dogs, number 2 is getting trees planted. So I just reached out to somebody that I knew would be close, so we could get the players out there, me, our social media manager as well, and try to help out.
Well, that's so interesting. So it sounds as though the players really drive a lot of your decisions, and they are the ones that really want to get involved in the community. So you're not really twisting their arm too much, are you?
No, it's pretty easy. There's a few guys that are busy, but no, I think as long as it's a great cause and they can help out, that's important to them. It's not much of a struggle to get them to come out and help with whatever the initiative is.
Yeah, and absolutely. And we always appreciate any help we could possibly get, especially from organizations like yours that are, in the public eye and bringing to light these issues that we have here in the Valley. And as you said, worldwide, but very specifically to AZSA, obviously here in the Phoenix metro area. How would you like to expand your efforts of volunteerism in the community? Or do you have any kind of goals on your wish lists, any big plans, organizations that you'd really like to get connected with?
I'm kind of going through our sponsors and seeing which one of those already have things in place where we can kind of amplify our message. I know Mayo Clinic, Phoenix Children's Hospital, Quality Health, Carvana, Arizona Federal Credit Union, they all have outreach programs already in place where we can kind of combine with what they're doing already. And I think that'll help us expand a lot faster. Also the supporters groups, the Banditos, we have a new group coming out this year that really want to get behind anything that they can help impact community in a positive way. Teaming with them, I think, and combining our efforts with, like I said, our partners and our supporters groups would be the next step.
Now you mentioned the Banditos. I think I've seen them at your games in the front row, right? They're usually are they kind of a booster club?
Yeah, that's what I was talking about before. It's kind of like that part of stands in soccer that are just crazy and banging the drums.
Right. Yep. That's what we saw. We were there on an extra hot day, and they were definitely entertaining.
Yeah, if we could plant some trees over in their section, maybe
hey, there we
go. Hang out a little longer.
All around the field, huh? That'd be great. Well, on that note, how can people in the community learn more about the team's community involvement? Are there any opportunities for regular everyday civilians to join in on your efforts and join up and partner with you guys and volunteer with you? Anything like that?
We do most of our, I reach out to the supporters groups and then they send whoever they can send. So I don't mean to direct it to them, but I mean, we can find stuff on our website and things we've done in the past. But I mean, if you have an idea, a few ideas for match theme nights and things of that nature have come through the info line. If you want to reach out to me, my email is pretty simple. It's just jason@phxrisingfc.com.
Okay.
I'm sure that anybody has a good suggestion, we'll definitely take the advice and see if our supporters groups want to get behind that as well. But yeah, that's just basically our website.
Okay.
This way.
That's great. Now we're going to talk about you for a few minutes. What is your personal ethic regarding sustainability, regarding our environment and the crises we're going through right now? How do you connect to that? Maybe talk a little bit about your history with sustainability or just with being outside.
Yeah, so like I said, I grew up in Pennsylvania, so coming down here is my first stop in my career was Tampa, so it was a bit of a culture shock. Palm trees don't give off that much shade, and I go through too much sunscreen to make sense living in Florida or Arizona, but yeah, I'm definitely on board for anything environmentally that I can help out with. Everybody kind of just tries to do their own part, recycle, and actually with the marketing group I was with last year in Utah, we did a lot of messaging because they have inversion in Salt Lake City. It's a big issue where in the cold months, the smog, the exhaust of the cars kind of lingers in the air, and it gives everybody headaches and stuff like that. So a lot of our messaging was like trip chaining. Like if you got to go do one thing, just combine it with 4 other things you have to do that week and kind of stay home, which I guess it kind of worked out with COVID. The one silver lining, I guess nobody's driving around in the last year. So it had to help the environment somewhat. But yeah, it's a big, it's important to me. They asked for a quote, so I threw one out from a video game that I play a lot, but it's a little heavy. I don't know if I don't know if I'm at that level where I can throw around a quote that heavy for environmental impact, but I'm like anybody else. My lawnmower is not even gas powered. It's one of those quiet push ones, and I have to mow my lawn at night, so not to be embarrassed, but
Oh gosh.
I guess I'm doing my part.
Hey, you're doing your part. You're making every little bit matter, right? So have you personally had a history of community involvement outside of the soccer world? You know, when you were a kid, did your parents get you involved, or any sort of stewardship opportunities as you grew up?
No, I grew up on a farm, so there wasn't too much going on. I mean, I had to drive 30 minutes just to go get groceries, so there wasn't a lot of groups I could get with or anything like that. It didn't feel, it kind of was like the Shire in Lord of the Rings. There wasn't really a need for any environmental. We were living in environmental impact. We had to pull weeds just to keep our gardens growing and stuff like that. But
exactly,
but
you lived it.
Yeah, through soccer, definitely. I was in Dallas with the MLS team there. It's kind of the goal of Rising to keep on improving and growing our stadium and get to Major League Soccer. And when I was with the team in Dallas, we built a lot of mini pitches in the community, and that's one of the things I'm trying to get rolling here. Just get sponsors behind, get the U.S. Soccer Federation, maybe Adidas, now that they're on board as one of our sponsors, to go to a place like another organization we worked with is Black Family Child Services in Phoenix, and they have a big parking lot, so we're kind of figuring out who owns that land and maybe put a mini pitch there where the kids can come and play soccer, kind of like a tennis court, more than a soccer field, but just
okay.
In South America, that's kind of how they grow the game. It's called futsal.
Yep.
It's a little bit smaller. The ball doesn't bounce as much, but just get the kids going where they can safely play. The ball doesn't go out in the street, stuff like that.
Well, and that's a big parking lot. It's a big piece of impervious surface collecting heat. So maybe they need some trees too.
Definitely need some trees there. I've seen it. It's a little hot, but anything here is hot, so.
No, we're getting there. We're trying to expand that tree canopy as best we can. Okay, so any last words to encourage anybody, any advice you guys have for anybody wanting to get involved in the community or needing a push or a place to start?
Yeah, we can definitely help them start. Like I said, just reach out to me. You can find my info on the website if they want to join one of our supporters groups. I know those groups are definitely down. They're definitely pushing for more community efforts. So if that's something you want to get involved with, if that's something you want to do with your time, that's cool. We're definitely here to just gather everybody, going in the right direction and help wherever we can out in the community and just be a good neighbor.
Great. Sounds like you guys are being an amazing neighbor and just really helping to pull everybody together as an influential group in the community. So hopefully we'll see you guys at some more tree plantings and we'll all get out there and green up this place together, huh?
Yeah, glad to help.
Pull it all down. All right. Thank you so much, Jason.
You bet. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason. Thank you, Jessi.